Welcome to the CSS Flexbox crash course. How do you make images fit into a Flexbox? How do you add multiple cats in a row, and then when you keep hitting the cat generator button, it actually puts the cats where you want them, and it doesn't actually go out of the box and those images come into the right place? How do you put your age and days, or a button like click me and a button like delete, and then they fit into the right places, right grids, and nothing kind of spills over or kind of gets messed up? This is your instructor, Rafik Hazi from cleverprogrammer.com.
And this is Aaron, also from cleverprogrammer.com.
And what are we going to be teaching them?
A lot of cool stuff. CSS, Flexbox, some of the theory about it at first, just to go over it, but then a couple cool projects. Is that about right? What else do we have planned?
That's about right. So we're going to go through the theory in the start and make sure you get the theory down. And then we're going to actually build some projects too, some mini projects, and we're going to be building those later into the video. So for now, let's jump into the meat and potatoes of this. I have put together an incredible, mind-blowing 3-part masterclass that will show you step by step exactly what you need to do, what the opportunity in your life as a Python developer can look like, what your earning potential can look like, and what are the exact steps you need to take to make this happen in your life. Please keep in mind, this training I've put together for you is absolutely free of charge, completely free. All I'm gonna need from you is your name and your email address. And once you pop that in, I'm gonna send this training over to you right away. With that said, the link is gonna be in the video below in the description, so go ahead and click that link. I'll also try to put it here on the screen in the video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I love your face, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey you, welcome back. Now, what I want to talk about in this video is what the heck is CSS, and give you an intuitive, I always have trouble saying that word, understanding of how it works and what it actually does. Okay, so CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. Fancy word, I never use it, but all it means is giving your website some design, some pizzazz. Okay, so it's like, imagine if you are going out to a fancy dinner, you can go completely naked. That's one way. And the second way that you can go is actually dressed up in really fancy clothing. Okay, and designing your website or not designing your website using CSS and just having HTML is kind of like being naked in today's day and age. Okay, it's inappropriate, it's not acceptable, you'll be judged, and your value on the social ladder will be lowered. And you don't want that when it comes to your website, because that's what will happen online, right? People will come to your website, they won't find you credible, they might not hire you as a Python developer, and it could be embarrassing, it could be shameful, and your time will be wasted. So you definitely need, absolutely need to learn this and know what the heck this is. Cool. With that said, let me give you an example. So here is the website with CSS. So what I just showed you and what it looked like, and it looks beautiful. The form is beautiful. When you click it, it goes beautiful blue. When you hover over, you know, it gives you a little thing. When you hover over, you know, so it's nice. Here is the same website without any CSS. Okay, so notice the navigation bar and look what happened to that. And notice how nothing is centered. Notice how it's kind of weird, and notice that this button, when you hover over, nothing happens, and all of this kind of looks pretty ugly, right? And like, and check it out, it runs from left to right forever. It's pretty hard on your eyes. And this is the case for many other websites, right? Have you ever had that happen where you go to youtube.com or facebook.com and you see it like in this format, kind of? right? That has happened to me a few times. And why that happens actually is because it hasn't loaded its CSS file. And so it'll happen. And then when you refresh, boom, it looks like normal Facebook again, or it looks like normal Google again. Okay, and now I want to give you, now I've given you an example. Let's just show you how it actually works. Okay, so I like to just open CodePen because it's kind of just chill and you can follow along really easily, or you can just follow along in your local text editor. Doesn't matter. If you want to know how I put my stuff to the left hand side, I click change view and I do this left one. Okay, I like that one a lot. So let's just take a h1 tag, right? And let's say hello, hi there. Now I can do a few things with this h1 tag. I can style it and make it look, change the color of it, for example. Okay, so right now it says hello, hi there. So I'm going to change it to another color. I'm going to change it to, let's say, green. So what I can do is inside of this h1 tag, I can actually pass in the style attribute, and I can say color, green, semicolon, save, and you can see that the color turned green. Okay, so this is one way of styling my code, and this is essentially writing CSS inside of my HTML code. Okay. Another way I could do this is in my HTML, I could have a style tag like this, and inside of this style tag, I can say that my h1, right? And why I want to show you this way is because, like, imagine if I had multiple h1s. And let's say I wanted them all to be green. Well, what I would have to do is I would have to add in a style attribute and color green, and style attribute and color green. And everywhere on my website I had h1 tag, I would have to repeat that process over and over again. Now, a better way to deal with this is to say style at the top, style tag, and then in there actually say that for the h1 tag, I want to just color it green like this. Okay, and notice every h1 tag got colored green. Okay. Now there's some important terminology here that I'm going to say now for the first time, and what I want you to do is write it down or type it in somewhere and remember it, because this is important. Okay, so this is a tag, right? This h1 that I wrote here, this is called a selector. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting all the h1 tags. Now what if I wanted to select h2 tags? I would change this to h2. Okay, this is just a declaration code block, so whatever goes in between these squigglies, that doesn't really matter. And I can do more things as well. Like, for example, I can change the font weight. Okay, I can change the font size. Okay, so let's try something, crazy, and let's see if it does anything. Cool, it changed the size. So all h1 tags from now on are going to be 70 pixels. Okay, if I want to make this color black, I can make it black. If I want to make it yellow, I can do that too. Maybe you want to give it like some kind of hex code, right? So I have this Chrome extension that allows me to pick any color I want. So let's say I want some color from this page. I'm going to click here. I'm going to click on that color picker, and I'm going to say pick color from page. And I'll just, let's say, pick some random color. Let's just say I want to pick this white color, or let's see if I can, yeah, let's actually pick this gray color. It's a cool color. Did it pick it? Did it pick it? Oh, it's not picking it. Okay, let's try this gray one right here. Okay, so it picked the background of this, right? And it copied it. So what I can do is in color, I'll just paste that. And now you can see that it's the same gray that's in that inside that HTML CSS box. That's now here. Okay, so I'm grabbing that selector. Now I can go further and I can get different kinds of selectors as well. Okay, if I, for example, create a div and I put this h1, inside that div, or I can call this body as well, right? So if I have my body tag, then what I can do is right in that style, I can also say that, hey, if you're within the body, then maybe I want to align the text and I want to center align it. So there you go. So now everything that's in the body will be center aligned, and all h1 has this attribute. All right, so you can see that got center aligned. Now in this video, the point was just to kind of give you a feel for what CSS is and how it works, okay, at a very basic level. Now we're gonna get more advanced with it, and I'm gonna show you how to create buttons that when you hover over the change colors, how to add borders around images, how to make your tables look better. There's gonna be a lot of things that we're gonna be covering, okay? So in this video, I'm not trying to fry your brain here. It's just to kind of give you an idea of how it works. Now, one other thing I want to share with you before I end this video is that notice everything that's in the style tag, right? I could keep it inside the HTML, but what if I wanted to create multiple HTML files? Well, then I would need to paste that style code everywhere over and over again, and that will be redundant. So what I would like to do is actually take this code, cut it, and paste it in the CSS, delete the style from there. And so HTML then only deals with the HTML part, and the CSS deals with the CSS part. Okay, so this way your code is nice and segmented, and you can easily deal with the logic. So your design goes in the CSS file, and your rest of your code will go in your HTML file. Okay, so in the upcoming video, I'll also show you how to set this up locally, how to create a CSS file and link it to your HTML file, and everything and beyond. We're gonna do all of that step by step. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Hey you, welcome back. So in this video, we're gonna talk about the setup and how, as a developer, right, if you're working on CSS or you're working on HTML or you're building a front-end project, what your workflow looks like. But in this, I'm gonna just go over it again, but it's gonna be like more of a recap. So again, I got my Chrome popped up to my right. All right, I'm gonna pop open my VS Code, Visual Studio. You could use whatever text editor you want. I just recently discovered Visual Studio Code, and they recently made it available for Mac, and they did some massive updates, and it looks beautiful. So I just use this. Now I'm gonna just open a folder. So I'll go to HTML Crash Course, and I can open up whichever folder I want. So I'm just gonna open that one up, and let's get out of here. And in this one, I can create a new folder and start writing some CSS. Okay, so we'll just play around with some CSS and just see how it feels, and you'll start to get a hang of it. And then I'll even show you that as a developer, you're not writing all this code all the time, unless you just do front end all the time, right? You're not writing a lot of this code from scratch. You can actually use stuff from online and other tools you could use, and I'm going to share those with you as well. So let's say I create a new file, and we'll just call it kazi.html. Okay, and I will go to my Chrome. I will hit Command O. I will go to GitHub, HTML crash course, and kazi.html, I will open it. Okay, so it's currently a blank file, like I expected. I'll hit doc, hit tab, autocomplete. I will delete that stuff because we don't need that for now. I will call this new file or new video, and I will hit refresh, and at the top you can see in the tab. So that's not CSS right now, but I'll show you how to add CSS with it. Okay, so and I'll show you how to link your style sheet as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a folder, and we're going to call this folder practice CSS. Okay, and in this folder I will throw Kazi in there. Okay, so I'll move it in there. Now inside of this folder I'm going to create another folder, and I will call this styles, and inside of the folder styles I will create a new file, and I'll call it styles.css. Now this is very important how I structured it, so pay attention. And a lot, you might make this mistake where you might put styles.css kind of outside of that folder or somewhere else, so just make sure you're aware of that. And what I want to do now is, let's say I write some CSS in here, right? So I'll say, hey, make all the H1s going to be color here. And I can also do something pretty cool, and I'll show you. H1, and I can say H1A, and make the color of this, let's say red. Alright, so Visual Studio, again, is pretty cool. I can hover over this and click this, and look, it shows me that the color of this is red. And sometimes what it'll do is it'll even pop up like color meter, and you can just play around with it visually. But like, it just brought it up right now. I still am figuring out how the heck it actually brings it up, but sometimes it brings it up, and then you can just control it from there. Anyway, let's go back to our code in kazi.html. So in here, if I write an H1, right, and I say practice CSS header 1, this should be green. Okay, so I have to open this file again. So I'm gonna, because I changed where the file is located, so now it's not in this directory anymore. Users, clever programmer, GitHub, HTML crash course /Kazi. Now it's in /practice CSS /Kazi.html. Okay. I could have just went from here, HTML crash course, clicked on practice CSS, and opened it from here. Okay. Just making you practice with some paths and how they work. All right. So now we got this header over here. So let's go to so now why is it not green? Right? That might be one of the questions you might have. Like, hey, in styles.css, you have it green, but it's not green. Well, if I actually write it here and I say style equals color green, and I refresh, you'll notice that it turns green, right? But I don't have it here. I have it in a file, and the reason is that file is not connected to this. Okay. Another way I could do this is in the head I could write the style tag. That's where actually you would put the style tag, and in here I can say make H1 and make the color of this green, and now when I refresh, it's gonna be green. I can say make it red, and I can go here and it'll be red. Okay, so let me delete this again. But what I would like to do is that keep the style in the styles.css file. So I hit Command B to hide the toolbar on the left hand side. So now when I connect this style sheet to my HTML, how do I do that? I just go inside of my head, I do style, hit tab, or sorry, go here, hit link, hit tab, and yes, it's a style sheet, so I'm going to leave it as is. And for the link, I'm going to provide a local link. So how do the paths work? Well, currently, right, I'm inside of kazi.html. So this is a file. So I'm going to go to styles, and then inside of styles, I want to go into styles.css. So I'll do styles / styles, and you can see it's auto completing it already. And now that style sheet is connected and linked to my current HTML file. And if I hit refresh here, you'll see it turns green. I'll zoom in just a little bit more so it's easier for you to see. Now, what if I wanted, you know, if it's a link, I want this to be, let's say, red, okay? And I've essentially done that. So I'm going to show you what that means. So we'll create H1, and we'll create a link, and this link will say practice, this link will just not go anywhere for now, and the text of this, or the content of this, will read link header 1. So you can see that the link has a header 1 that's red, okay? And how I did this is I say, hey, dig into an H1 tag, and if that H1 tag, and if there's a tag or a link tag within that H1, then color it red, okay? Because I'll show you, if I have a normal A tag, and it's like normal A tag, like that, look, it looks like a normal link, okay? Whereas the header 1 looks a little different. So again, these are the, you know, H1 is a selector, and I can, you know, use that to select it. And I can do the same thing and dig even further, right? So I can say that H1, or I can say that for H2 link on hover, what I want you to do is color orange. So now what's going to happen is that if you have a H2 tag and it's a link, and when you hover on that link, it's going to turn orange. All right, so we will copy this guy, we will paste it here, we will turn this, whoops, into an H2. Okay, you see that? When I hover over it, it turns orange. You can do a lot more, right? So this is just, you know, how it would work with H1, H2. But if I wanted to, let's say now, do this with images, and let's just grab an image, and chessboard. Okay, I'll try to grab a smaller image, you know, nothing too huge, and let's just grab this guy. Or actually, yeah, why not this guy? Or, you know, I like checkmates in 1, so I'm going to do checkmate in 1. So these are all positions where you're one move away from checkmating. You can use these to practice your skills as well. I'll paste that here, refresh, and we see the board, okay? Actually, let's see where the checkmate is. I think it's white to move in this position. Oops. And okay, so I see the checkmate. So I would move this queen all the way here, and it's a checkmate because the king cannot take my queen, knight will capture, and this bishop cannot take my queen because the rook will capture the king. So it's a pin. All right. Now, what I want to do is, let's say I want to maybe add a little bit of shadow or a border around it and make it look, you know, let's say a little bit nicer. I can do that as well. So I want to show you now some new kinds of selectors you can use. Okay, so here we'll use an ID, and I will give this an ID of let's just say chess, you know, mate in 1. All right, whatever. I'll just give this an ID, and I'll go to styles.css, and I will say 1, and we'll say border radius, and we'll give it like 4 pixels or something. Okay, did something happen? I don't know. Let's try with more. Did you guys notice something changed? Right? It became a little bit more rounded around the edges. Let's try something ridiculous so maybe we can see the difference. You see that? So now it changed even more. So let's just make it 100 pixels and let's see what it does. Okay. So you can see that there's a pretty obvious change that's taking place, but it's a little too much. So maybe I want to make it rounded, and I just want to make it like a little bit rounded, not too much. Now, what if I want to add shadows, and what if I want to add more and more things around the image? Okay, so for example, let's say you add another image like this, right? And you don't provide it an ID of that ID, and let's just say you leave it as is, and let's go back. You can actually see the difference between the two. And I'm just gonna add another break line here. Okay, so break line I added so then it can go below it, and you can see that they look much different. One has rounded corners, one does not. And the selector I'm using here is an ID. Okay, I can use this ID here again. Actually, let me remove the break line because I think it's not that helpful. Refresh. So as soon as I use that ID, you can see that the rounded corners are here as well. So this ID is a form of a selector, and I can select things with that ID. I can also select things with a class. So now I can create a class and I can say chessboard. So as soon as it is a chessboard, maybe I want to give it a certain radius. And if it's a mate in one, I want to do something special. Okay, so let's just look at it online. Okay, how to add shadow in CSS. Okay, and let's see what comes up. So I'm gonna try to Google things as you would naturally and normally Google things. Okay, I'm not gonna be like, well, today I want you to go to MDN or Wikipedia, because that's what people refer you to. And yeah, it's cool, but nobody learns like that. Like if you're starting out, you're just Googling stuff that's coming to your mind naturally. And then you'll see how I use these as well. Okay, so let's just go here and let's see. They got something called box shadow. Okay, cool. We have some examples of box shadows being used here. All right, they're kind of over the top, something that doesn't look that good. We'll just add in a random box shadow and see how it works. Box shadow, and let's just make it 10 pixels. Apparently it takes in a color. Let's go to W3 schools, and it's saying box shadow, you can give it a width, a height, and a height and width, and you could even give it a color. Okay, so you can pass in like multiple parameters for it. So let's just kind of copy this guy and let's just paste it here, and let's see what happens and what it does. Okay, do you notice that this shadow got added here? Now I can also just make it orange. Right? Can I make this 10 pixels and try? I can. Okay, it's a little over the top, but that's totally cool. Now you can also add shadows all around it in a square, because right now it's to one side of it. If you wanted to add it, you could do that too. So here, let's do this now. Okay, what we're gonna do is I deleted that line, the border radius line from mate in one, and I'm going to now make mate in one, and I'll turn it into a class. All right, so to turn things into a class, you have to make them into a dot. So it's not gonna have a hashtag anymore. That's for IDs. And I'll take this chessboard and I'll put it up here. Now I want to show you something different. If something's just the part of a chessboard class, right? So let's say I do this and I say class equals chessboard like that and refresh, you'll notice that it has that radius because chessboard has a border radius. So you'll see that it has a little circular radius going on. Now what I can also do is for this one, the next one, so you can see the difference, I can say class is equal to chessboard space mate in 1. Okay. And notice how this is inheriting from two different classes. One is chessboard, two is mate in 1. Now, if I wanted to look up checkmate into images, I could maybe give them a different, oh, okay, I thought that was actually my video that popped up, but that wasn't. So if I wanted checkmate in 2 image to look differently, I can copy that image address and I can do something similar. Paste it in here, and for class, I can create a new class. Okay, and try this. Pause it and design your mate in 2 class to look different than the mate in 1 class. Okay, so give that a try right now. Okay, and what I'm going to do, so I already kind of gave you the answer there, and now for the class, I'm going to do chessboard mate in 2. Refresh, and now you can see that the mate, so this one, the first one is just inheriting from the chessboard class. The second one is chessboard class and a mate in 1 class, and then the bottom one here is it's getting it from chessboard. That's why you have the rounded corners, and you got the mate in 2, and it has that little red thing going on. Okay, and you can do that with classes. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper with them and inherit from whatever you need. Does that make sense? So this way, it's kind of a nice way of just seeing how all of this works together. And I want you to practice that with things too. And I want you to practice some things that might break. So let's just try something. Maybe we'll see if it breaks or it doesn't. You know, who knows? Let's just give it a try. So what I'm going to say is that if it's a mate in 2, right, on hover, maybe the borders show up. Okay, so let's just refresh. That's kind of cool, right? When you hover over it, the borders show up, but otherwise it does not. Okay, how about this? We can do something else. So I'm going to leave this as is. And notice I'm just actually playing this around with you live right now. Okay, this is not even structured. And the reason why I'm doing this is so you can get a sense of how I'm doing it and the things that I'm enjoying and how I'm actually discovering this stuff. And then when you're watching it, I want you to feel the same thing, that when you're doing this, don't be so restricted to exactly what a tutorial teaches you, right? Play around with it and get a feel for it. That's where you're going to make the biggest progress. Every time I've literally just sat down and taken notes, I end up finding out that I haven't made real, true progress. But when I work on something on my own, and then I have it there at the end, that's when I make real progress. Okay, cool. So box shadow. Now, we can also make the box shadows cooler. We can make them a little bit more different. So first I'm going to make it so right now on hover it doesn't do it. But I can make it that on hover, if you hover on the chessboard, right? So let's do that. I'll do dot chessboard and I will do hover, and I will say that on hover what should take place is, you know, it should just show that it's active or that you're actually currently looking at it, and maybe there's a box shadow. Okay, and let's just make it 10 10 10 10. Let's see what happens. I have to see it and just refresh. And so now anything that has a class of chessboard, if you hover over it, it should create a box shadow on it. And look at that. right? It creates a yellow box shadow around those images. So it knows that those are selected. Now, could we make it the box shadows a little bit better? Yes, we can, and let's try it out. So there's a thing called CSS Matic, and you can go there, and it lets you create different kinds of boxes, okay, and lets you do it visually. So whether you want to actually create a radius and you want to see, you want to make it look a certain way. So see, I can make this box look a certain way, right? Give it a little just a little bit of all of it. But what I'm gonna go in is box shadow. Now let's see if we can make a box shadow that's kind of even and like a little bit like that, and again, this is a little bit over the top, but it's just to make sure that it pops out and you can see it. So here I did it. Now I'm gonna copy this code, zoom in a little bit so I guess you could see it a little bit better. But here, so I made something. I'm going to now copy the code that it has given me, and that code I will just pop in here. Okay. Now, do I have to know what all of that code means? Absolutely not. Okay. I just know where to paste it. Like I don't even know how to make box shadows like these, because that's, to be honest, that's not what I spend my time doing. Like I'm spending my time building backend in Python or building APIs or doing something more. Front end is not really a lot of my thing. I don't spend a lot of time doing it. But do I know how to put together a beautiful looking website and use the right resources for them, or at least how to research? Yes. And that skill is a lot more important than even you knowing all of this just kind of at the back of your head. All right, so now I got this. If I had to guess what these here mean, I would assume that it has to do with compatibility between different browsers. So, if you're on Mozilla or WebKit, whatever that is, probably just gives you make sure that there's compatibility on all different platforms. But if you remove that, I'm sure that it'll still look the same. So I'm going to hit save. We'll go back here and we'll refresh. And so on hover, now that box shadow looks a little bit more calmer than R1 that was like pretty aggressive, right? And if you want to color it something, you can do that too. If I delete these, I'm sure they'll still work. Okay. That line is just for adding some extra compatibility. And if I want to change this, because this looks intimidating, right? You're like, oh, RGBA, oh, it's so confusing. Sure, you can change it to orange if you want. And now when you hover over, it has that little orange. Or you can make it green. When you hover over, it has a little green. You could do this with images. If you want to put cat images, you want to put whatever. For me, I just enjoy chess. So I will, I just choose to do the chess one. And I also found the checkmate here. It's rook takes here, pawn takes, queen takes, checkmate. Sorry, I just love chess. Okay, so you can see that, we've put together a pretty cool, cheesy looking website right now. But that's because we're just playing with a lot of this, right? We're not worrying about design patterns. We're not worried about like what's a minimalistic, clean looking website. We'll work on a lot of that. But for now, it's important for you to just get messy and play with it. You're like, think of it like you're like a little baby, right? What is that? There's this video that you might have seen, and it's like this little baby. He's sitting on a countertop, and his hands are just filled with peanut butter, right? Peanut butter, and his entire body is just filled with peanut butter. He literally looks like a mummy. Okay, it's a little fat baby in his diaper. And there's like peanut butter all over his body, and his mom comes in, and she's recording, and she's like, "What have you done?" And he's just looking at her, and he's like, "Oh." And he's just like messy, right? Thick peanut butter everywhere, like in his eyes, like in his hair. And it's just a disgusting mess.
Butter on him?
Yeah.
Oh.
But does he care? No, he's just having fun. And he's probably learning what peanut butter is. And he's just learning about that texture. And he's just learning about life and just feeling it out. But as we grow older and we go to these academic schools or we go into these professional environments, it's like, oh, you have to take like extremely precise notes and don't ask any questions and don't open your mouth and just shut up the whole time. And if you ask something that's kind of dumb, everybody else will laugh at you. I want you to forget that. I want you to take the baby approach and just get messy with it, okay? Do whatever you want. Try to break the CSS. Look up different tags, different selectors you could use. Play around with it, right? What about different divs? Like just div having a different background or a different color. How about styling your span tags? So if you had something in the span tag, it would look different. Okay. Let me show you something else real quick. So let's say that you want to put bullet points somewhere, right? So I'm just gonna put bullet points at the top, and I will say UL, and I'll go here. I'll say LI, and we'll have first bullet point, and then we'll say, whoops. And I'll go here and I'll say second bullet point. We'll hit refresh and you can see that I got bullet points here. Now, could you make it in a way so if I hovered over those bullet points, they turned orange? Give it a try right now. Give it a try right now. Make those bullet points orange. Now, could you make it so if that bullet point is actually a link, it has a color of pink, but only if a bullet point is a link. Not just any link, a bullet point that's a link. It's pink. Could you make it so only the unordered list's link bullet point is pink? Okay, let me say that again. Only an unordered list link bullet point is pink, nothing else. So for example, if I do a ordered list like this, and I say, and I make this into a link, and I say link ordered bullet point. Okay. This should not be pink. Only the unordered list bullet point should be pink. So I'm going to go here. I'll paste this. Okay, and again, UL is unordered list, OL is an ordered list. So how would you do that? Well, check it out. I can go in my styles.css. I can drill into UL. Okay, UL is a selector tag, so just UL. After the UL, I drill into that line, and after that LI, I drill into the A. And then in here, I can say that this should be pink, right? So color pink. Save. There you go. Okay. Can you do something where the a bullet point or doesn't actually even have bullets next to it? Or can you do it that link actually doesn't have an underline in there? How would you do it? I haven't taught it to you, so you're just gonna be like, Kazi, you haven't taught it to me, and just give up and just get really angry. Or let's do this, okay? How to remove underline from links, CSS. Okay, you saw it was automatically completing too at some point. And styling, removing the underline from hyperlinks, okay? Darward.me. Would I say it's a good resource to use for everything? No, but when I do it, when I type it in and this comes up, let me just check out what they're saying. Looking in here. Let's see, does this anything about remove? Oh, that's cool. So again, as I discover things, you should discover things like this too. All right, so I'm in here and I can see that link tag, you can make it a certain way. You can also do if the link is visited, what it should look like. So if somebody's already clicked on a link, then maybe the style of that link should change. So if I copy this guy and I go into my styles and I paste this here and I go back to my thing, you know, maybe the links that I've already visited look a little bit different. Let's go back and I deleted it. Cool. So that was a cool new thing I learned. They also have hover. That's fine. Now notice this. Text decoration, and it says text decoration none. All right, text decoration none, which means that, like, if you have text decoration underline, it'll put an underline on that link. Okay, so I can override a link's and how it looks. So I can say text decoration, I can say none. Okay, so it's still a link, but it doesn't have an underline on that anymore. So this was a cool resource. How about, Stack Overflow? This is always a really good resource, and look what it says. Text decoration none. Ignore the rest of the comment. There's like other stuff going on. He's talking about important and blah blah blah. But for CSS, he's asking, hey, how can I remove the blue underline? And it comes to text decoration none. Okay. And look, we put together something pretty cool. This turns orange. This has different box shadows. I hover over it, does different things. Pretty awesome. Now, in the upcoming videos, we are going to start building on a project, okay? And I'll show you what you need to do and everything that you need to learn to get it done. And then I'm also going to show you the solution and walk you through building it step by step. So even if you don't get the solution and you build it with me, you're going to learn a lot, all right? And it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'll try to build it mostly from, kind of scratch together with you, so you can watch me go through mistakes and my thought process and how I overcome them. If you like this style of learning, right, this is less structured than like bullet point, everything just showing to you. It's like we're working through things together and we're coming up together. If you like this style of learning, comment below if you like it and what you like about it. If you don't, then comment below and do let me know. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, awesome. So up until now, you've done quite a bit of stuff, right? You went up in here and, you built this little project, which is kind of cool, to be honest. But here, I want to show you some really awesome stuff, okay? So I want you to learn how to become a detective. Now I want you to look at websites like you're almost solving a case, all right? So you're kind of that criminal. Let me put my seat down a little bit. Cool. Like you're a criminal. That's not what I meant. I want you to look at it like you're a detective, okay? And solve it like a detective. And don't be a criminal. Unless your website is criminally good, then that's okay. So on this website, let's say that I have no idea how the hell you did this, okay? I have no idea how you built this website. I have no idea what fonts you use, and I have no idea how you added that box shadow and stuff. I can come to it and just be like, oh, this is a great website, and then just X out and leave and never come back. Or like a detective, I can pay attention and I can actually figure out exactly what you did. And wouldn't that be awesome that you could go to other people's website and figure out exactly what they did to make it and then use that for your own website? So let me show you what I mean. So let's just say that this was a website that I had built and you were just coming to it for the first time and you were like, okay, this is cool. When I hover over the boards, it makes it green. How did you do that? Okay, let's right click here and we'll click inspect. Okay, and inside of inspect, what we'll see is that we have this image tag. So when I hover over it, it tells me that, oh, this board is just part of that image. This is that image, okay? And it's even showing me what that image looks like over here. And if your dock is not at the bottom, click these three collapsible dots and then select right or bottom. Oh, whoops. I'm going to hit inspect again. Inspect. And I'll click these collapsibles and put them down. That's all. So here, it's showing me the HTML code that was made to bring this picture up. And it's showing me, and when I hover over the link, it actually shows me what the image looks like, which matches this image. So I'm like, okay, cool. I get where you got the image from. I can actually change the image if I want. So I can double click into it. Or I can leave it as is, which is cool. Now, this board is part of the chessboard class. And I'm like, interesting. A chessboard class. Cool. Well, over here, when I go into style, when I'm looking at your styles, what I notice is that it's actually part of this class. And this class, chessboard, all it has is it says border radius 30 pixels, which is exactly what we have over here on the left-hand side. Now, what I can do is actually turn it off. And when I turn it off, it shows me their styles on how would they look if the chessboard class wasn't activated or didn't even exist. And I can be like, oh, so that's what this person is doing with the chessboard class or with the border radius attribute. Interesting. That's what that does. Cool. Now, how come there's this orange border around this board? Let's go figure out what's the situation there, right? So I can X out of it. Okay, I can even go into hovers, and I can actually activate something, which is kind of cool. I can be like, hey, active, focus, okay, visited, hover. On hover, what does it look like? Activate the hover mode of this, and it's showing us that chessboard hover has this. Okay, so the force element state, we have forced the element state to be in hover, and it shows us that this is the code that goes behind it, which says chessboard hover and this green thing, which you can actually see right over here. You're like, interesting. So if I write this code, that's what that will do. And if I write this code, that's what that will do. But this will only work on hover. Interesting. What else can I figure it out about this? Okay, so I can now look at this board right here, the one on the right hand side. I'll hit inspect. And I'll hit inspect, and it tells me that it's part of the chessboard class and it's part of the main one class. Okay, it's part of two classes, and I have both of them activated. And it tells me that there's a chessboard class and there's a main one class. And the main one class, what it does is it adds a box shadow. So I'm like, oh, interesting. If I turn off that box shadow, it goes away. How's that box shadow working? It says 5px, 10px, followed by orange. Cool. Can I turn this orange into something else? Ah, that's what that looks like. Interesting. What if I change this 5 pixels to 10 pixels? That's what that does. What if I add another 10 pixels right here and another 10 pixels right here? What does that do? Okay, what if I add another 50 pixels right here? What does that do? Not the best looking thing, but maybe I'm learning something. I'm picking up how this actually works. Now I can still activate it or deactivate it. Cool. And you see exactly what classes you need. Okay, so chessboard class, a main one class. Classes in CSS are represented by this little period. An ID will be like a hashtag. Okay, so I've learned a lot so far. Now I can also go and see how this link unordered bullet point is working if I wanted to, right? I can go to this link and I can say, okay, unordered list. I can highlight this, and I can be like, I can click it, and once I click it on the right hand side, it shows me how the styling is working for it. Okay, so in the styling, I can see that it says, hey, the under the UL, under the LI, and then under the A, style it to be pink. I can activate it, deactivate it, and it tells me the text decoration is none. When I deactivate that line, it shows me the default actually has an underline. So I go, very interesting. Similarly, I can go onto this website, the project you're supposed to be building, right, at cleverprogrammer.github.io. I can go to this and I can say, this font is interesting. What font actually is it? So I can hit inspect, and then under inspect, I can actually see what type of font it is. Okay, so I can click here, and it's telling me what font size it is, H1 2.5 REM, and I can see what type of font it is. So let's see, if I scroll down, it's telling me the font family. So it's telling me the font family, it's telling me the line height, it's telling me the font weight, and all of that. So I'm like, interesting. We're using Railway Sans Serif. All right, and it's telling me it's on line 22 under whatever this file is. So it might actually even take me to the file. So now I'm actually looking straight up at the styles.css file. And I can see that under our content, I can see the font that was used, the line height that was used, the font weight that was used, the max width, and all of that. Okay, so just to give you an example, let me full screen this guy so you can see him better. You can actually even use a tool like Font Face Ninja, and once you hover over it, it tells you what font is being used. So you can already see it says Railway. Okay, Railway is a cool font, and you can see that it says it's in medium, about 40 pixels and 48 pixel line height. Okay, line height means when you press enter, you know how separated are this. So it has good spacing and it makes it really legible. So you can be like, okay, cool. Now what you can do is if you want that same font on the chess project or whatever that I was making here, I can go to fonts.google.com and I can find Railway. So I can search for Railway. And here it is. I can go to Railway and I can say select this font. It popped up at the bottom. If I zoom in a little bit more here. And once it pops up, I can just copy this thing. So I'm going to just go and import, copy it like this. So if I wanted to put it directly into my HTML, I would copy it with the style tag. But since I want to put it only in my CSS, I will put it like this. Okay, so I'll put it in my CSS file all the way at the top. Okay, and to activate this thing, right, I'll actually say that whatever is in my body, make it this font. Now let's go back here, let's refresh. And as soon as I refresh, you can see the font looks better, right? And now when I right click on this and inspect, hopefully and then it shows up in body, look at the font. Railway Sans Serif. And it's looking a lot better in my opinion. You'd be like, oh, interesting. Not this guy right over here. Okay, and you can also go to rafekhazi.com if you want inspiration from my actual one that I'm using as my business. Or maybe for whatever reason, cleverprogrammer.github.io isn't working. So you can see how, like a detective, I can just go figure out each component of the puzzle, right? And including maybe I can even figure out how to put this nav bar at the top, which I want to leave to you as a challenge. All right, so I've shown you how I would, as a detective, figure out a lot of these things, and I would change a lot of these things, but I also want to leave some of these things to you, okay? Other tools I want to give you is, you know, I can go to this code and I can actually do view page source. And when I do view page source, it even shows me all the HTML code that was used to build that page. Now, if you go on a really popular website or a really website that's visited by a lot of people, or it's really big, usually their HTML files aren't going to look this simple. Usually their HTML files are going to look quite a bit complicated. So, you know, it's not, but for ours that we're making, it's going to look pretty simple. The HTML code is straight up, okay? And you can use that to figure out, okay, how this thing actually works, okay? You got image tags, you got an unordered list, you got an ordered list, simple enough, okay? Go try that with my website, okay, cleverprogrammer.github.io, and see how far you can get in recreating this website. One of the things you might need to learn still is how to add a background image. Here, I'll show you real quickly. Okay, let's say I want a background image, right? I can simply go like this. In the body, I can say background image, and I can provide a URL for a JPEG file. Let's see if I have a JPEG. I do. I'll hit refresh, and you can see that now it's not the prettiest image to add to your background, but it works. Okay, I can add another, you know, if I want to add a pattern, kind of like I have on this website here, you can, whoops, let's go out of full screen. You can just look up online like minimalistic background patterns, and you can use that background image to add as a pattern in the back end. Now you might have some other questions like, hey, how do you add padding? Or how do you actually make this like centered or not to one side or the other? One thing I do want to show you is called padding. So let's say I'm like, what if I wanted all of this to be in the middle, right? Not like if I full screen this website, you see how it's all the way to the left? What if I wanted everything to be kind of like mostly in the middle? Well, what I can do is I'll just leave it here for your purposes. What I can do for this is I can say pad, or actually even max width. Oh, I have to put a semicolon here so it completes it. And I can say 600 pixels. And then margin, I can say 0. Okay, so actually instead of putting a 0 there, let's put an auto there, come right back and hit refresh. And you can see now that this is now moved more in the middle. Okay. And if I do 800 pixels, right, and I hit refresh. Okay, so it's like, how wide do I want this to be? Let's try 500. Cool. So you can see that now it's, most of it is being aligned in the middle. Maybe I want to try 300. Okay, and now it's even more in the middle, and it's reading top, down, just like that. Okay, so this is what I'm going to give you. Use this, use the Chrome Dev Tools to put together this website. Another thing that's going to be a challenge for you is how did I build a nav bar? I'm going to actually give you the resource for that, okay? Nav bar, CSS, W3, okay? Literally go to this and use this to put the nav bar together, okay? You can use a vertical navigation bar if you want, or build a horizontal navigation bar, okay? So I actually built a horizontal one just using that, and it looks pretty damn good, right? So just use that for now. Build your navigation bar, put the page together. It looks like a really clean page. And at the end, you know, for this, you're going to actually have to use Bootstrap a little bit. So if you can Google that part of it and figure out how to put together a Bootstrap form, then you can build this. But if you don't figure that Bootstrap part out, the Bootstrap part is just going to be at the end, okay? Pretty much nowhere else. If you can't figure that out, don't kill yourself over it. Just try to get as close to mine as you can. This is more art than science, all right? So I don't want you to beat yourself up or be like, hey, I didn't get it exactly right. As long as you can get close, you'll be good. Our solutions are going to look a lot different, you know, when you see my solution. But just give it a try. And then I'll show you how I put this together, and then you can use that to learn as well. All right, so this project is going to be a lot of fun. And by the way, when you click these links, nothing really changes. Okay, so it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy this process, enjoy working on this project. I'm really excited. I can't wait to see what you put together. That's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey you, welcome. We're going to touch on CSS and Bootstrap. Woohoo, what a surprise. I know. But we are going to be building one big project, and in this big project, you're going to get a deep understanding of how CSS works, how to create forms, how to create beautiful buttons, how to create stuff where when you hover over it, colors change, and just beautiful static websites that you can model after learning this. Because honestly, what I believe deeply is that instead of working on like 7 different small projects, I don't think that's a good idea. What is a good idea is working deeply but on one project. And this is something I recommend even as you go on in your journey to learn. Whenever you learn something and you want to apply it, work on one big project and work on it really deeply. I've had some really close friends with me who are learning coding, but to this day, they're like okay coders. And the real reason behind that is because they just dabble in like 10 different projects, just a little bit or just halfway. But one of the reasons why I was able to improve my skills and get them to a really high level was because I would get in that project, one project, and work on it for a long time. And I'm talking about, there were some projects I worked on for 3 to 6 months to even a year long. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that long for you, but even if you work on one project for like a few days, a week, a month, versus multiple other projects for like half a day. Super important. Okay, with that said, let's jump into what we're gonna be making this week. Okay, one big project we're gonna make this week. So I got this idea from this personal brand I actually started, rafikazi.com, and this is a business that actually I'm gonna be building, and it's gonna be there to help other people build their businesses leveraging the power of YouTube. Okay, so you can see my little tagline here, or not little, actually a really powerful tagline here: how to build your authority, overcome obscurity, scale your business, and build an audience of ideal buyers for your products and services. I have some experience in this. I started Clever Programmer. I have you here. I have other people here. So I thought, why not? Let's get it started, okay? And this is a real website, and I'm offering this lead magnet to people, which is essentially a free gift for them to give me their email address. And generally how these businesses work are you get people's emails, essentially their contact information, and then the people who are interested in your product, when you release your product, you can actually eventually sell your product or service, right? So just like you got a lot of free value, a lot of information from me, and you're like, I'm winning, this is awesome, this is great, how do I get more? Well, I'm like, okay, there's some high level stuff I've made for you, maybe the Profitable Programmer or some other course you might be in, and here's how you can get it. There's a price for it, you pay it, you purchase it, and there you go. Okay, so we exchange value at the end of the day. And that's what this new business model is about, is teaching you how to actually scale it for yourself. And so I thought, for this CSS project for this week, the CSS Bootstrap project, wouldn't it be cool to use the knowledge we've already built about HTML and then leverage CSS and Bootstrap to actually make a page like this, but actually even better than this, because I took the time to actually model this page, and what I ended up building looks even better than this. And so I think you're gonna have a lot of fun working on this, okay, just like I did. So let me go right here. So check out, so this is the new page. Again, same tagline, but now at the top you can see that there's a navigation bar, and when I hover over it, it has like specific styling that goes along with it. And the background pattern looks pretty cool, right? This is bland, it's just white. And here we have some subtle minimalistic pattern going on in the background. And, you know, the writing is a lot easier to read on this page, in my opinion, because the other page, it reads from left to right a lot, and here it's mostly in the middle, so you read through it easier. And by the time I get down here, you can see that I have a nice little form, and this button that says yes gimme. First of all, it looks really nice, this button, and second of all, when I hover over it, notice what happens. It changes colors, right? It changes colors. So how does this happen? And how does, when I hover over this, it changes colors and everything, right? So this is what we're going to be learning. We're going to be learning a lot more things, but eventually our goal is to actually build a replica of this. And if you want to check it out, I've hosted this online. And a cool thing I didn't even mention till now, it's not going to be one of those projects that you do on freaking Udacity or Coursera or edX, where they always make it sound super cool, and by the time you get to it, it's like this super terribly lame project that you can, like, that has like 2 basic kindergartner things, right? This one is a real project modeled after my real website, where I actually have traffic going, not only that, but you are going to actually have it hosted online. So if you notice that this is hosted online, and you can actually go to this link by going to cleverprogrammer.github.io. Hopefully this link will still be up by the time you're viewing this video, and you should be able to see it there. And underneath this video, I'll link to the project, or somewhere in this module I'll link the project so the solution is there for you, so you can always go and look at the right code and what I did to build it. Okay, though I wouldn't say look at the solution now, look at it later. All right, I hope you're excited. We're gonna have a lot of fun learning how to build this and learning some ins and outs of CSS along the way, of Bootstrap along the way, and some cool tips and tricks. And another thing I want to focus on is, while I want to show you the exact code that was used to build this project, what I'm really interested in showing you is the real development workflow of a developer. Okay, so that's what a lot of people don't show. A lot of them just make a course and as a teacher teach you. What I want to teach you as is not just a teacher, but if you were sitting next to me and you were working, you literally were watching me work, I want to show you how that looks like. Or if you watched a real software developer work, what would that look like? Okay, and you guys might have this in your head, or you might have this in your head that, you know, as a software developer, you create everything from scratch. But that's really far from the truth.
God fucking.
Paid a lot for is knowing what to copy and paste. Okay, and so that's a very real skill set, and I'm going to be teaching you that as well. And so it's just going to be a lot of fun. All right, and we're going to work together, we're going to make mistakes together, and we're going to learn together. So by the end of this, I want you to have a natural feeling towards how to go about it. You know, it shouldn't just be that the two things you learn in this course are it. I want to give you the tools to be able to expand your knowledge even when you finish this course. Okay, with that said, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Hi, welcome. In this video, we will do something really amazing, and you will have a lot of fun, because what I'm going to be doing is building this from complete scratch. So I'm not even going to use my notes. There's nothing like that. We're just going to be working on it together, trying to make this website. And what you're going to find is a lot deeper insight than even if you just watch me literally write the solution. There's going to be some points where I'm going to get something wrong, something right, doesn't matter. But I'm going to work through it, and I want you to verbally see how I work through it and see how I even look up solutions online. Now, what I want you to understand is I'm not a front-end developer. My front-end developer skills suck, but I can put together a badass website because I know what to use and where to use it. Because I know how coding works, I can put together a website that looks beautiful because I'll even figure out how front-end coding works. Okay, it's just all about understanding how these things fit together. So let's get started, and we're gonna clone this bad boy right here, this website that I was showing you. Okay, so I'm gonna full screen this thing so you can see it one more time, and we're gonna put that to the right side, and we're gonna start from scratch in our VS Code. So I'm gonna create a new folder here, and we'll just call it clone Kazi site. Okay, you can call it whatever you want. Here I will create a new folder, call it styles, and inside of styles I'll create a new file called styles.css. You should be familiar with this now. And then inside of clone Kazi I'll create a new file, and I'll call it index.html, and we'll get started writing code. Now in our Chrome, I will go here, I'll open and clone Kazi site index.html. I'll open that in Chrome, so you should see this blank page right here, and we'll get started. Okay, so first we'll start off with this headline, and we'll go from there. Okay, and now I'm literally thinking about it. kind of from scratch again. Okay, so before this video, I tried to clear my mind so I could start with as blank of a slate as possible and then think my way through it kind of out loud, and you could work alongside me on this. All right, so I'm just gonna go through this page a little bit. Okay, so I see that this is probably paragraph, and this is some kind of a header. So what header is this? I'll hit inspect and just find out real quick. So it's H1. And here's some styling that is being used for H1 that I can see. And let's look at the font. So the fonts that are being used is Railway Sans Serif and all of this. Okay, cool. So now this part is important. I'm going to try to actually just copy this part. Okay. And you know, again, I can tick this mark off. Is that a right way to say it? Tick this mark off, whatever. So I can tick this mark off, and you can see that when I change it, how it affects the writing. So this is with the Railway Sans Serif font family on, and when I turn this off, I can't see much of a difference there. But in my paragraphs, I can hopefully see the difference here. Okay, one is readable, but it's a little close, and this gives it a nice little breathing room. So now I know what line height is used for. Font weight, you know, this makes it weigh a little bit more. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna kind of paste that in here. All right, now what I know, oh, I'm sorry, I gotta go in my styles.css. Okay, I'm gonna paste that in here. So now one thing I already know is that I'm going to have this class, and it's called like our content. You could call it whatever you want. You could call it something totally different. And this is the font family. This is the line height, font weight. And, you know, let's see what this max width stuff is all about, right? So notice that when I put it on, look at what it does, right? Changes the width here and padding at the top. So we'll try to build this from scratch as we go. Okay, I'm going to remove this, but I know a few things already, and we need to get the Railway font. So we'll go to fonts.google.com. I will go to look up Railway. Right here, I will hit the plus sign. It copied it. Okay, and I'll click it. I will grab the import code. I'll paste it in my styles.css all the way at the top. And then this is the font family. Okay, so I'm going to go in here, and I'll say that anything that goes in the body, actually give it that font style. Okay, so I'll say give it that font. Now let's go to our HTML code. I'll hit doc. I'll delete these for now. And we'll call this Kazi's website clone, or Kazi's website. You can call it your own website. And when I refresh this, you'll see at the top, the tab now says Kazi's website, so that's good. All right, so let's get the copy from here, the headline, and then we'll just put the H1. We'll paste the headline, okay? And I'm gonna refresh. Now, going into my style sheet, I will make sure that my body has the Railway font. So font family Railway, okay. I have this. Now I'll refresh, and that's weird. There are a few problems that we notice here. First of all, it starts from all the way to the left, goes all the way to the right, and notice this starts in the middle. And also, it doesn't look like it has the Railway font. So what's going on there, right? Because like even if I delete this and hit save and come here and refresh, it looks the same. And when I do this and save and refresh, it still looks the same. So what's the deal? Well, it's because I haven't linked the style sheet yet. So in my head, I'm going to go and I'll say link, and I'll simply link that style sheet. So now when I hit refresh, you can see that the Railway font is coming in, and if I actually right click and hit inspect, it should show me that the Railway font is coming in. Okay, so now I have the font looking somewhat, good. Now let's do a few more things. So my font looks good, but it's still reading a lot from the left and then reading it all the way to the right. So it seems a little too much. So what I will do is I'll say like pad it a little bit. Okay, so let me do padding left, and I'll do 40 pixels. Let's come here and let's refresh. So you can see it added a little bit of padding here and it pushed it to the right. Now padding can be cool, but the problem is that when you on a mobile device, it can look pretty weird. It's like reading every single word on its own line, and it's okay in terms of centering something. So what I'll do is I'll give it a max width of, say, 200 pixels. Let's just try 200 pixels. And then I'll say margin is auto. Okay, so this is a cool way of making things centered. So you can see that it gave it a width, and then the rest of it just says do it auto. So it kind of starts it from the middle. And that's essentially the width that it has. Now, let's give it a little bit more width. So I'll do 400 and hit refresh. Now it reads it in the middle pretty much perfectly, but we need to give it a little bit more. Like, for example, you can read business and build an audience on the same line, except business and build an audience for us reads on two different lines. So now I know that I still have to make it so it has a little bit more width. And let's try 600 here. Okay, products and services. Cool. It looks like it's reading in a similar fashion. Okay, how to build your authority. Great. Let's see if anything else needs changing. So ours is really at the top, if you can see, and this one kind of has like some space from the top. This is just completely touching it. So we need to add some padding on the top. Okay, padding top, and let's add about 20 pixels. Let's refresh. Cool, and it looks like it gave it a little bit of room, and that's kind of what we want. And then this image, on this website, when I right click, I can actually inspect the image, and this gives me the URL for the image. So I'll just use this URL, and I'll go in my index, and then I will say image. I'll paste that image in, and I'll hit refresh, refresh. So you can see that this image right now looks really, really huge, and that's not what we want. So in my image, I'm going to add in a height attribute, and I'll just say 500, and I'll add in a width attribute, and we'll just give it 300. Okay, and you can put quotes around it or not, doesn't really matter. Okay, so now it looks a little bit more normal, but it looks a little bit squished. So we'll give it a little bit more, 400. See how that looks compared to it. Still doesn't look that good. When I inspect this image, I see that it's a 700 and width 500. So I'm going to do that for mine too. 700, give it 500, save, refresh. And now it looks a little bit better, right? And even if I full screen the thing, it still looks in the center. And even if I make it shorter, half the screen, it still looks like it's in center. Okay. Cool. So we got the image. Now what else do we need? We need to add the page copy, right? All of this copy right here. And what I recommend is just straight up copying all of this like this, or what you can do is go to the page source and copy it from there. So that way it'll copy all the line breaks and everything, because there's some line breaks in here, okay? So if you spend time doing all of that, it might take you a second, though it could be good practice. But, whoops, I'm gonna go here, I'll say view page source, and everything starting from this p tag, here's what you're right now, all the way to this p tag, I'll just copy and I'll paste right here. I'll hit save. We'll go to our website and refresh, and you can see now that that copy is on our page. Okay, cool. So it's looking good, except the lines in between make it a little bit harder to read. So we need to give it a little bit more line height. Okay, so I'll go to my styles at CSS, and we'll add some line height. So I'll say line height 1.2 em. Refresh. Okay. Didn't do anything. Let's just do something crazy, 4 em. And you can see that there's a huge difference here, right? Let's try 2. Fresh. Okay, 2 is looking pretty good. Let's try 2.3. And now it looks like the page has some room to breathe. Maybe it's even too much. It just depends on your taste. But when I read these paragraphs, I think it's good to give it a little bit breathing room. So far, I like how things look. They look really good. But I feel that reading it, this text doesn't look like it's powerful. It looks very thin. And I don't really like, my eyes don't really enjoy reading it as much as they should. So what I would want to do, honestly, is probably make them weigh a little bit more. So you can see that when I do 900, it just becomes darker. And if I do like 100 and go here, it becomes really light. So I like how 900 looks. Okay, maybe you can even go 950. That's up to you. But I personally prefer my text to be kind of dark and feel like it has weight. So when somebody's reading it, they can go, okay, there's like power behind it. Okay, so the text is looking pretty good. The fonts are looking pretty good. Now I just need to add that little this thing and then the call to action. Okay, so first we're gonna do that call to action part. This part I'm gonna add at the end because this requires Bootstrap. So I'll show you that later. But first, let's just go and add this thing. So under this P tag, I will add an H2 because that's not an H1. Okay, notice, and save that copy, hit refresh, and okay, I got this. That's good. And now I just need to make sure that I have I'm gonna again add this at the end. You can add this from the regular forms that I showed you, so you can certainly do that for now. Just leave it blank. Say input is a text or email, and we could put the placeholder to be email address. Okay, and then underneath we can say button okay, and the button can be called gimme. Whoops. So here you saw that I have the email address and then it says gimme right there. Okay, so I'm just putting like a basic form right now. Later you can make the form cooler. Like if you want to do something like where I hover over this button, maybe it turns orange. That's not that hard to do, right? I can just say something like button on hover, make the color orange or something, right? So now it changes the font color to be orange. Let's try if we can do background color. Okay, and now the entire button turns orange. So you can do something like that for now, just or not, doesn't really matter. We're gonna again create the final version of this at the end. We're not gonna pay too much attention to that now. So our page is looking clean, very readable, very nice. Now let's add that pattern in the background. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just grab I'll look up minimalistic background patterns, and I'll just kind of see what comes up. Where I got it from was like this subtle patterns thing, And so you can get that one, or you can get this tic-tac-toe one. To be honest, I like it a lot. I might even like it more. So you can actually preview them too, which is awesome. If you hit preview, you can see in the back. Pretty cool. So you can have this one too, but that's a little too much. So I'll hit download. And now that it's downloaded, what I'll do is in here, I'll create a new folder. I'll just call it images. Okay. And I'll take this image, okay, the tic-tac-toe image. I'll go in that folder, HTML crash course, clone Kazi site. I'll go in images and just paste it in here. Okay. You can even link to the online image, but you can just do it locally too. That's totally fine. We'll go back, and inside the body, I'll say background image, and I'll use URL. And since styles is inside here, notice that next to styles.css, there are no other files. Okay, so if I from styles.css say, hey, go to images, and then inside of images get the pattern image, it's going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know where images is. So we need to give this a path. Okay, an absolute path or a relative path. So for example, right, if you are in your house right now, you have Starbucks to the right of you, what I'll tell you is like, hey, leave your home, walk to the right, and Starbucks is right there. That's an example of a relative path. Okay, another example would be if you have Panera Bread to the left of you, I'll be like, walk downstairs, go to the left, Panera Bread is right there. Now, if I have to give you an absolute path, I might say, hey, on 2040, Hollywood Street, that's where Starbucks is, or that's where Panera Bread is. Now, that's the absolute path. No matter where you are in the world, in the country, in the state, you know where that address is. So just like that on your computer, each thing has a relative path and an absolute path. So what do I mean by that? For example, this going from, if you're in this index file, the relative path to the styles.css, it's simply styles/styles.css. Okay, it's a relative path. But if I want to get the absolute path, you can even see it right now. When I hover over it, it shows me. But the absolute path actually says, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, I'll open up my terminal so you can see this more clearly. All right, so I'll go into my GitHub folder, I'll go into my HTML crash course folder, I'll go into clone Kazi folder, and to get into styles, I can just do cd styles, okay, which means change directory into styles. So I can do this, cd styles, and hit styles, and hit enter, and I'll go into it. Or I can go inside of it in another way. Okay, so check it out. When I do pdw, here's my absolute path right now, and I'm gonna now go into styles. Now when I do pwd, you can see that my full address in this location is user/cleverprogrammer/github/html crash course/clone Kazi_site/styles. So that's another. So that's so you just saw I got into styles by just doing cd styles. Now when I do cd, and let's say I'm home, I'm really far away, I can even go inside of styles directly in one go. Instead of going into one folder, then another folder, then another folder, I can just go straight to this entire address. I can just do this. I can say cd, paste that address, hit enter. I'm in styles again. Okay, so it doesn't matter where I was in the first place. Now, because I'm in my clone Kazi site and I want to get access to that image, which is in images right here, tic-tac-toe, the first thing I actually need to do, okay, whoops, actually let's go in here. So I'm in styles.css. I need to first go back a folder, so then I'll be in clone Kazi site directory. Then I need to go inside of images and then get access to the folder. So here's how I'll do it. I'm going to do dot dot, and that means go back one directory, okay? And I'll show you what I mean by that again in here. So if I can do, show me where I'm at, I can do cd GitHub. So now I'm in GitHub, right? So I'll do pwd, and it'll show me that I'm in /user/cleverprogrammer/GitHub. If I do dot dot and I do pwd again, it'll show me I'm in /user/cleverprogrammer. So you see I went back a directory by doing dot dot. That's what two dots does. So I'm going to go back one directory, then I'll say going to images, and then after that I'll say what's the name of the image? Tic-tac-toe, tic-tac-toe.png, okay, like that. And when I hit refresh, you'll notice that that tic-tac-toe image is now linked. So looks a lot better, to be honest with you. Looks pretty beautiful so far. Now at this point, it seems like all we really need is that nav bar at the top and better looking form thing, and our page is good to go. So let's do that. Let's get that nav bar. So okay, let's just go online, how to get navigation bar CSS. Okay, that's what I would Google. And let's just go in here in W3 schools, and here's a navigation bar. That's cool. Here's another navigation bar. I like this gray one a little bit. This one is cool too, but I like the darker one. So there's all kinds of different navigation bars. There's like vertical ones, and then there's horizontal ones. So we're gonna go and grab the horizontal one. So let's see which one. So it's this one. Okay, I want to grab, and it gives me the code for the bar. And if I just read the code, I'll try to understand and see how it's working. So I noticed that here they have the UL, which is unordered list. So what they're actually using here is an unordered list. Okay, but how does it look like a navigation bar? So what the heck are they doing? Well, what they're doing is that they're making the unordered list, but they're making it in a way that instead of the unordered list writing things from the top to down, it's writing things from the top to right. Okay, so from left to right instead of top down. So this unordered list is going this way. And why does it look like this? Well, behind this unordered list, you can actually just put this gray background, right? And you could put some padding so that this text home is not all the way to the left and not all the way to the top. So we put some padding from the top so it looks like it's in the middle, and we put some padding on the left so it looks like it's in the middle from the left or the right equally. And then what we can do is on hover, it gets this color. And then on hover, the news can get that color, okay? All of these get their own color. So that's kind of what it looks like this code is doing. So what we'll do is we'll copy all of this, okay? And then, so now here's another important part, right? You copy paste code, and then you have to know how to use it. Now, the only way you can know how to use it is when you understand how this all works, which at this point, hopefully you've seen enough to know how this is kind of working, okay? And just kind of get a feel for it. So UL, in my HTML, if I make a bullet point list, this thing is already going to be working, okay? So let's just give it a try. Let's put a UL list here, and let's just see what happens. Okay, I'll say hi, I'll say bye, and let's bring this guy here, refresh, and this is how this list is looking right now. Not exactly what we want. It's because I actually didn't save the styles.css. Now that I've saved it and I hit refresh, it looks like it's coming up. Now, there's not a lot of padding here, as you can see. If I zoom in, there's not a lot of padding here. So we need to make sure that we add some padding. So let's go back and see how their example is working. Okay, list. All right. So when the padding actually gets added is when LI, a bullet point, is a link. So if it's a regular bullet point, it'll look regular. You notice this over here. But if you drill in to a LI and drill in with a link, that's what it'll actually look like. This styling is going to get applied. Okay, you can see over here. So now let's actually make these links. So I will have the same thing. I'll say A, and I'll say hi, and we'll do A, and we'll do buy, and I'll come over here. I'll hit refresh, and notice that styling just got applied to it. Okay, this styling right here. Boom, 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 boom. But if I have a regular link that outside of the unordered list, like a regular link like this, hello, it still just looks like a regular link. It's only the link that's inside of li. So you see how with CSS you can get deep into selectors, right? You can point it and get narrower and narrower with it. So it's pretty cool. I will delete this guy, refresh again, and that padding seems pretty cool. Now, what if you're like, hey, I'm not exactly sure how all of this is working. It's kind of confusing me. Well, I'll explain to you how this is working, okay? Pretty straightforward. First of all, notice text decoration is none. All right, so when I hover over these links, they don't have an underline. What else? Padding. I'm adding 14 pixels from the top and 16 pixels from the left. Okay, so what this is doing is actually adding 14 pixels at the top, 14 pixels at the bottom. So it's sandwiching the thing in the middle from the perspective of the top and the bottom. This 16 pixel here, what it's doing is adding 16 pixels padding from the left and 16 pixel padding from the right. So from the perspective of left and right, it's making it in the middle. So it's like perfectly in the middle. Okay, so to speak. How you can check it is you can right click inspect and just turn off the padding and see what happens. Okay, and even from here you can actually change the padding. So I can go right here and I can say padding, make it 20, make it 15, make it 300, make it 10. What does that do? So you can see how this works. And maybe if you like something more, you can come back to your code and make the following change. And if I change to 16, what's happening? It's adding a lot more spacing in the middle. You can also change the color. You can make it freaking green if you want, right? Double click, green. Okay, and you can see, and now it's green. Hit refresh, and now it's back to normal. Okay, what is this display block thing doing? Let's delete it. So block is like making it a little bit wider, right? Text align center, what the heck is that doing? Doesn't seem like it's doing much right now. Padding is definitely doing something. Text decoration is doing that. So cool, now you've learned what each of these pieces are doing. That's how you're supposed to learn, okay? Not sit there freaking reading documentation for 3 days. So now I know what this guy is doing, but what is this UL doing, right? Does that totally make sense to us right now? Maybe, maybe not. Let's check it out. Let's hit this guy. So when we hit this guy, you'll notice that before there were bullet points by default, but by doing list style type none, it's now removing those bullet points. Cool. What is this margin 0 thing doing? I see there's a little bit of movement, so it's doing something, not exactly sure what. When I do padding 0, it's making sure that the UL has no padding by default, so it's overriding its padding. Cool. And what is this overflow doing? Apparently you can't even see this without the overflow hidden, right? So we want to make sure the overflow is hidden. And background color, important, right? So you want to have that background color, otherwise you apparently can't even see this thing. So those are two of the important things that you kind of need in there. Okay, cool. And then how is this working? So when you hover over it, it's changing colors. It's getting a little bit darker. Well, what's actually taking place there is that you have on a LI, on a LI link, if you hover on a bullet point link, this happens. Okay, so it's a very specific situation when that actually takes place. You can even make it that the freaking background image changes to something else. You know, you hover over it and the background image changes to cats. You can do whatever you want. You could add multiple lines of code in here. Okay, so on my website, it says Rafik Hazi, and then it says courses, and then it says hire me. So I'm going to go back here. I'll say Rafe Kazi. I will say courses, and then I will say hire me. Okay, cool. Let's look at it. Rafe Kazi courses hire me. There's one little problem. The bar is not running along. There's padding at the top, which we don't really want. And when I scroll up and down, the bar is there with us. But when I scroll up and down here, the bar doesn't actually stay there. So those are the few changes that we're going to need to make. Also notice that this is orange here, active, and here it's not. So we'll figure out what's taking place there in just a second. Okay. So first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this bar is by itself and not doing this weird thing that it's doing here. So how would I actually go and fix this? The problem I think that's happening here is that this bar, remember how we created this body, right? And everything that's in this body, it's supposed to be centered. Well, this navigation thing that we made is actually in that body, right? Inside of the body tag. And because of that, it's also being centered. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that the content of the website that's on the page is somehow being handled in a specific way where it's being centered, because the content is what needs to be centered, right? And then the navigation bar shouldn't be part of that content, and it should be kind of separate. So how do we do that? Well, how about this? Let's do this. Let's make sure that the navigation bar is in its own div, and we'll just give it a class of navigation. We don't know if we're going to use this class or not. Okay. And so we've put the navigation in its own class. That's not going to do anything, okay, right now. So even if you refresh, nothing's going to happen. And we're going to put all of the content in another div, and we'll just call this class our content. Call it whatever you want. I'll go at the bottom, whoops, and put it right here. Okay. Cool. All right. Now, if I hit refresh, nothing is taking place. But here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go in styles. I'll create a class called our content. And inside of this class, I'll add this stuff. Because we only want our content to be centered. Now let's hit refresh. And you'll notice that the nav bar now runs across fine, which is what we want. And our content is centered. So that's pretty good. But for whatever reason, there's still that padding at the top that you can notice, right? So we need to now remove that padding. We can hit inspect on this nav bar, and let's actually see. There's this padding on the top. If I remove that padding, notice the bar goes up higher. So let's actually do that. So this padding, this doesn't need to be added to the nav bar, but it needs to be added to the content, because we don't want this how to start from right over here. It's going to make it look really murky and mixed in with the navigation bar. So we like that that padding is there. So what we'll do is we'll take this padding and we'll add it right here. Now notice that for our content, I don't actually need to add the font settings in here. And the reason for that is because it's inheriting from the body. Okay, because our content is a div and that's underneath body, it's inheriting the fonts from the style of the body. Okay, and now when I hit refresh, look, the bar is a lot higher. It's still not perfectly at the top, but it's still a lot higher. Okay, let's hit inspect, and you'll see that it says inherited from body. Okay, that's where the font is actually coming from. Cool. Let's go right here. So it's looking better at this point. So because of the line height, let's go. Nope, not the line height. Okay, now let's work on something else. So the bar is looking decent. We'll troubleshoot this little space here at the top and that little space to the left and what's going on there in a second. Now let's make sure that this thing where it says Rafik Kazi turns orange when we or is orange the entire time. Okay, since we're on the home page. So what I'm gonna do is for now I'm just gonna provide anchor tags. Okay, so I'll say Rafe. This part doesn't have anything to do with it turning orange, by the way. Okay, so I'll hit refresh here, and now when I click hire me, you'll see at the top it has that anchor tag. When I hit courses, it'll say courses. When I hit Rafe, it'll say this. So anchor tags are cool to add just to make sure that your links are working without it actually directing you to another website, because that's annoying sometimes. And that's also sometimes they do that. You know, you've seen on websites, right, where it's like a one-page website and you click something and it takes you all the way down here. Well, how that works is you can actually provide this an ID of, you know, hashtag courses or something. And so when you click here, you can make it so that it takes you to this div here. Okay, it's kind of like a selector, so you can just give it the action. Hey, take me right there. All right, let's make this guy orange now. So I'll go back to that website, CSS navigation. Let's see what it says about an active link, right? So here I'm on the CSS, so the CSS page is green. How do we do that? So here's an example, active/current navigation link. It's just this line of code, cool. We'll add it in somewhere close to that, paste it, and just say orange in our case. So notice that because it says dot, it's a class. And I'll go in here, and what I'll do is I'll just make this bullet point and make it from the class that's active. Go back here, hit refresh. There we go, good. All right. So now you'll see that this thing is perfectly orange, just like what we wanted. Okay. Orange or not orange, or sorry, yeah, orange. Cool. So our nav bar is looking a lot better. Pretty much exactly what we want. Okay, hovers, you click on it, whatever. And so right now, since we're working on the index page, that's why this is orange. If you were on the courses.html page, then on that page, you'll have the same navigation thing, but instead of putting class active on Rafe, you'll put class active on courses. And so then courses will be orange on that page. So when you click on this, it'll take you to the courses.html page, and this actually will be orange the whole time. All right, good. Now what we need to do is add in that Bootstrap functionality. So then that way this looks beautiful and this button actually looks more beautiful. Okay. And you'll see what Bootstrap is. Bootstrap is literally just a CSS file. It's just like a really big CSS file. And you can actually just get access to it. So you know how we have made all these classes, our content, button hover, this special UL one? CSS is what is used to make Twitter. Or sorry, Bootstrap is what is used to make, you know, Twitter as well. And you just get access to a lot of built-in classes in CSS and built-in divs and all that stuff. And so you can just use their already created styles. So for example, right, where we're creating this form or we're creating this button, we could actually just use a button right from Bootstrap, and we don't have to design our own button. We can just say something like button class Bootstrap button, for example. And it'll turn the button into a beautiful button that you didn't have to write any CSS for. It just kind of happened automatically, okay? And that's what we're going after. So I'm going to come in here and I'll add in Bootstrap functionality. So what we'll do is we'll go Bootstrap CDN. Click right here. And here is Bootstrap complete CSS. Okay, so you can download this file if you want, but I don't want to download the file. I just want to get it so I can link to it. And now if I go online and actually paste this link in, it's just a big CSS file. Okay, just a giant CSS file, and that's all of this. That's all of Bootstrap. You could download it and put it locally on your computer. I just like to link to it. So now let's go here. We're gonna say link. That's it. Okay. So this is an example of a local CSS file. This is an example of a CSS file that's actually hosted online. Okay. I'll hit refresh. And now notice it. The CSS got, or the styling automatically got a little bit better, right? You notice what actually happened at the top? Now there's no spacing anymore, and there's no weird padding at the top. Bootstrap automatically comes with a lot of intelligent built-in things. And when I hover over it, it turns blue, gets that underline, which makes it look nicer, to be honest. It changed the font a little bit, which is totally fine. Not that big of a deal. And at the bottom here, we still are running into this problem where this form is not looking nice. So we're gonna use some bootstrap built-in stuff. So what I'll do is I'll just literally type in how to make a form in Bootstrap. Okay, that's actually what I would Google, because I'm not sitting there making Bootstrap forms all day, so I'll just forget. I come across this, and this is a cool looking form. That's kind of what I want. I want an email address and I want a submit button. So I'm gonna just copy this guy completely, and I'll replace my form with that form, and I'll hit save. Okay, and it needs to be like this. Okay, there we go. That looks properly indented. I'll hit refresh, and now look at that. Look at that. It's looking really clean. If you want it like this, you could leave it like this. If you don't want the password one, right, we can just go in here, delete this, 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 and this, and that should remove the password. Okay. This is the entire email thing. So if you deleted this, it'll delete all of the email stuff. And if you delete this, it'll remove the checkbox. And we don't need the checkbox. We'll remove that. Hit refresh. The checkbox is now gone. So you could leave it like this if you want, but what I like is just the email bar with the yes give me button. Okay, you could decide to keep this one if you want. I don't really like it, and I also don't see the reason to put this email address at the top. It says enter email. Pretty clear, I think, what it's asking for. So what I'll do is, first of all, so notice something now, okay? If I do this, right, and I don't give it a class, and I hit save and hit refresh, this is your regular button that comes with your regular CSS, okay? If I give it the class that it had, this is a class that's actually being used from Bootstrap, and even when you hover over it, Bootstrap has its own defaults. I can even look it up. Bootstrap default Bootstrap buttons. All right, and you can go there and it'll show you all kinds of buttons. So to get this button, you're gonna have to do button secondary this class right here. Okay, if you want to get this danger button, all you just have to do is button danger. These classes are already built in. Isn't that nice? You get beautiful buttons that you don't have to design, that just come already built in. There's all kinds of other cool stuff that you can do. Buttons, you want a large button, you want a small button. Maybe if you want an icon on the button, you could put different kinds of icons on them too. So we'll just go back to our website for now. And I'm going to change this button to say yes. Gimme, refresh. So now I got that button. That's cool. I don't need this line because I don't need to have that label. I don't care. I don't even need this ID stuff. You know, if you need it for later, I don't need this aria, whatever. So I'm going to delete it. Okay. And for placeholder, I'm just going to say email address. So I got the email address right here. And this is clean enough if you want to keep it like this, but I just want to change a few more things, and I want to add the button to the right of it. So I'll hit, so that now that is gone, and I want this button to the right. How do I put this button to the right? Oh my God. Do I have to know this from scratch? No. Do I even know this realistically, honestly, right now? How to add this button to the right? Not really, and I don't care. I can look it up. Align button on same line. I'll just write like what I would write as a normal human. Bootstrap CSS. Okay, just fill it with keywords. Here comes a Stack Overflow link. It says, why don't buttons and inputs align well in Bootstrap? I tried something simple like this, and apparently he got something that doesn't align really well. Okay, so look at this and then look at his button. You know why he got 236 upvotes? By the way, getting the equivalent of 236 upvotes on Stack Overflow is like probably 1 billion people viewed this thing. Because it's such high quality, like not a lot of people will vote, but when you get this many votes, it's like a lot of people. And you can actually see right here, viewed 281,000 times. Okay, so something that people look up a lot. The same reason why developers use Stack Overflow a lot. I use Stack Overflow a lot for this reason. I get my answers like this. And now he has some answer, and this guy's like, if you want to group the button on the left side, use this. If you want to group the button on the right side, use this. So cool. I'll look at this, and basically he's putting the class into an input group. So that's the div that he's actually using. Cool. So here, instead of using a form group, it seems like we're going to be using an input group. Okay, that's one insight I got from it. And then when he's making the button, what he's doing is that he's doing, okay, so input type, we have input type email. We don't want the text type because email will actually have an email field. And what's cool about an email field is that this is something that comes built in with HTML, is it'll automatically check for it. So if I try to hit submit, it'll say, hey, please include an @ And when I try to hit it again, it'll say, hey, please enter a part following the @ sign. And if I do this, you know, it'll go, okay, cool. So it has a few things built into it. Let's go back. So my input type is there, which is totally fine. But what I need, and this div actually needs to close here. Okay, so the button and everything else needs to be included in that div. The email and the button needs to be included in that div. What else? Type button, go. All right, now I need a span tag. This is important. So span class equals input group button. Delete this, go here, paste it here. Oh, sorry, indenting is just important for, makes it more readable. And let's go back, refresh, and boom. Got this email address. This is to the side of it. Great. Do I need to go, can I go into a deep rabbit hole and figure out how it works? Yeah. Do I need to? No, don't really care. All right, so now our text is not looking as good as this text. So we gotta just see, all right, what's going on? Do some more trial and error and get to the bottom of this situation. So we'll hit inspect and see what's going on with our styling. So line height 2.5 EM. What's our line height? 2.3 EM. So we can make it 2.5. Let's go back here. Let's hit refresh. Would it make a difference if we add it here? Yes, it does. So we'll make sure that we have the line height here. So our line height is now looking much better and a lot more readable. See, there's a lot of like trial and error, and you try some things and see how they work and what actually takes place. Okay, let's just double check if our font family is even being used. So let's go here. Let's paste this. Whoops. So for whatever reason, our font family was not being used. Now it should be being used. Let's put the weight here as well. Refresh. Now the weight is being used. Okay, now our stuff is actually looking a lot better than it was looking before. Is there anything else that we need from here that it's not doing? All right, so another thing is that notice on this page we have some space here, and then notice on our current website, the one we're working on, there's no space at the bottom. So we're gonna add some padding in the bottom as well. Padding bottom. Let's go here. Let's make sure all our divs are closing correctly. This div is closing here. Form is closing. This div is closing. Span is closing. Div. Body. Okay, and now we got some spacing action going on at the bottom. We can actually add some more spacing. I think that'll make it look better. So now we got some more, even some more spacing. So now I think this looks good, and the font is looking good. You can still change it if you want to whatever. Hire me, all the buttons are working. And there you have it. Okay, we just made a pretty cool website, really modern, hyper modern, minimalistic, from scratch, and it looks beautiful. And this was some of the front end part. Now you get better at front end and you learn the back end skills, and you use a website that people would want to use, and on the back end you have cool stuff happening. You know, if you're learning Python or whatever it is, you could make really powerful apps. Okay, and now you have the ability to make apps that people will actually want to use, and people would want to play around with, right? And yeah, that's it. Thank you for working on this project. I really hope you enjoyed it. That's it for this video, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. All right, so here we have a basic HTML file. Okay, you should know some basics of HTML and CSS if you're watching this video. If you don't know them, then go and watch like the CSS crash course and the HTML crash course that we have. And then outside of that, so these are the two files, what they look like. Now we are currently on a platform called Scrimba, which another cool thing about this is you'll be able to go back to this exact video on Scrimba. You can scroll to any point and you can play with the code at any point. You can play with our code and change things and see what differences it makes. Boom, we're gonna be going over a complete guide to Flexbox, the CSS tricks, because these guys are awesome. So we're gonna be covering some of what they're talking about, and we're gonna be coding this up together. All right, now for you, we have put together a basic index, basic HTML file, very, very tiny, with a container and just some items. And then we have a basic styling file, which has certain properties, like for example, we want the container to be standing out. So on the right hand side, you can see the container has a yellow golden border, just so you can see that that's a container. Then all the divs inside of the container just has a little bit of styling. So we have added, like for example, if I change it to 1 or 3, the size of the font changes. And then the main things are the items. So we have a brown, purple, and black, and brown, purple, and black, right to the right-hand side. Now, what we want to do is we want to show you how flex boxes will actually help you with your code. So the first thing you want to do to activate Flexbox, the main command that you need is the equivalent of like turning on a switch and then turning on a switch and then turning off a switch.
Yeah.
So display flex.
Yep. So you're basically like importing the Flexbox functionality pretty much. It's like importing a library. Blah, blah, blah. So that just activated it, right?
Correct.
As they can see on the right side.
Yep. So display flex will activate the flex box. Now, what has happened effectively is that container has turned into a flex box. So any items that go inside of this container will have some of the flex box properties, and now you can actually call them.
Yeah. So it's pretty much it automatically just sticks it all into a row, and it automatically starts by default. Its default settings is just to have like while you're resizing and stuff. It or does it? I don't know. I don't actually know the complete defaults, but pretty much it's just activated, and now you can set all the settings you want.
Yep. So obviously we have the flex direction of flex row. Now let's go to CSS tricks and let's see what it's saying. Obviously it says the first thing you need is just a display flex, because otherwise it won't be activated. With this, now it has been activated. It enables a flex content for all its direct children. And let's now discuss what the flex direction does, right? So we have flex direction. You can go left to right, which is the default, which is what row is. Now, if we go back here, if you go flex direction, this is row reverse. So if I do reverse, this just gets flipped over like this.
We did that earlier.
We have column right here. So if I change this to column, boom, you have it in columns, okay? Now if I do column reverse, you can see that it just flipped it, but in a column. Now, where this could be helpful, for example, is you could say anything that has a width less than 800 or a width less than 600, meaning like kind of when you're on a mobile device or something, you can say, hey, make it a column. If you are on a medium-sized device, like a tablet, or a large-sized device, like a desktop, you could say, do a row. So that's where these things could come in handy. And now you don't have to do that ugly part of the math that normally you have to do. Here, you don't need any math. You just use Flexbox, and it handles all the messy math for you.
In one word, column.
Yep. So let's leave this here. Row, no wrapper, whatever is the default, but let's just leave it like this. And let's go here and let's do justify content. And we can do justify content, and let's just talk about what justify content does, okay? So let's go to justify content right here. And you could have justified content like left justified. You could have it maybe more right justified by doing flex end or centered. I personally like the space around or space evenly quite a bit. So let's just give it a try. Let's go justify content, and we will do flex start, which is the default. So if I hit save, it won't really change much. But now let's do end, and you can see how things just moved over to the right. Now let's go from flex end. Instead of flex end, we will go space. Which one you want to do between?
Yeah, sure. We're gonna try all of them. So space between,
space evenly. Okay, and then you have space around. So there you have how you can justify content. And again, if I change its size, you will see how it works, right? And now you will also see the problem that we get into is even if we go smaller screen, it still just keeps running. So we have to fix that, and it puts it all in the same row. Now, how do we deal with that problem where it just keeps putting everything in one goddamn row? Instead of doing that, we want it to move over to the new line if the space runs out.
To automatically wrap to any screen size pretty much.
Yep. So, well, it makes it really easy. We can do flex wrap. And that's about it. Okay, now things just wrap. So if I start going closer, it'll just wrap. So now it's pretty much mobile friendly, pretty close to it. Automagically. This is what we love about the Flexbox. If you're dealing with images and things of that nature, you definitely want to have Flex Wrap on. Other things that are cool about Flexbox, yeah? We have a thing called order. We can order them kind of however we want. Now, if we go here and I go order 1, you can see which one got ordered 1. Now, if I add in order 2, you can see what happens here. And if I do order 3, we have the default order that we had originally.
Yeah, so you can kind of manually order each item independently, which is what this allows you to do. It's just like numbering them in a certain order, like the elements of a list or something.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
all it is, of a sorted list. So yeah, so you have like the default, which is just all the way through, or you can have reverse, or you can manually order them any way you want. So you have full freedom to make it look however
Maybe you want to do 2, 1, 3 or something. So you can change that in the order that you want. All right. So this is where order can come handy. Now, let's take a look at few other properties that you might need. Like, to be honest, these are the most common and simple ones you need to just get started. All right, these are the most common simple ones you need to just get started. And again, just in case you're seeing how this is working, we have one container and then we have a bunch of divs inside of it. Okay, and each div has a class item 1, item 2, item 3, which is why we have class item 1, item 2, item 3. All right, browser support, another important thing you want to take a look at. Flexbox has browser support pretty much with all browsers. Now, you probably don't want to be using Internet Explorer, but if you're using the 11 Plus, you have accessibility to Flexbox. With Chrome, Safari, and Mozilla Firefox, you obviously have the flexibility to use it. Now, where it says new or new, that's where you can add the regular syntax of just saying flex. On the older ones, you might have to say Flexbox, or if you get really old, you have to say box. For example, we have a file here, which is a very simple file with one flex container, and everything else is just a flex item. We can resize this image and you'll see what it does. We can go to its CSS, and in the CSS, to add compatibility for multiple browsers, you can see how they have done it. WebKit, and Mozilla, they did box, and for other stuff, they did either Flexbox or Flex. These, you honestly just want to look them up online and see what's the best way to add compatibility across multiple different browsers. But if you just write it very simply and you just do display flex, most of the browsers, if people have the newer versions, your code will run. But you definitely want to make sure that you have compatibility in all of them. Hopefully this gives you some idea of how Flexboxes are used. What we can do is we can add in multiple items here so you can get more of an idea of what's happening. There, we covered the basics of Flexbox that you need to immediately get up and running. We will have the source code in the description below for you to go and use. Now, we're going to be jumping into the next portion of the video where we're going to be building a few mini projects that require Flexbox so you can get the idea behind them. One of them is going to be Your Age in Days. And then the second one is going to be, what is it going to be? It's the cat generator.
Random cat meme GIF.
Which is going to be a lot of fun. There's random ass cats in there. And good luck trying to focus on the code. But I think you'll learn a lot and you'll enjoy it. And what we would love for you to do is build it and then drop it in the comments below. And we'd love to even check out your code. Cool. So now let's jump into the project portion of the video. Whoosh. What's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome. Let's get started. Or as they say in my country, let's get swifty. So we're going to be starting from complete scratch, okay? So if you look at over onto the screen, cue that screen up right now. It's empty, okay? But this is what we want it to look like ultimately. So challenge 1, challenge 2, 3, 4, 5, blackjack, blah, blah, blah. We're going to start off with challenge 1 in this video, okay? And we're just going to work and figure out how to actually do that. So let's get started on this challenge, okay? The first thing we're gonna need to do is, so by the way, the reason why I have the borders around it is so you can kind of see like visually, you know, once we're actually working on this challenge, you'll see how, you know, each border is supposed to represent like a div or a container. And if you don't know what the heck that is, don't worry, you'll learn. And I'll guide you through the process, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is just add the HTML content, okay? So where it says challenge 1, your age and days, and maybe the click me button and the reset button, and we'll go from there, okay? So let's get started. On the left-hand side, I want to show you in VS Code here, I have index.html file, and right next to it, I have a static folder. In static, I have my CSS, I have my images, I have my JS and sounds, okay? So don't worry about that for now. What you are going to worry about is CSS and JavaScript, okay? And I don't want to just show you JavaScript by itself. I can and I will a little bit here and there, but my main goal is to show you JavaScript and how it works together with everything else, okay? So, you know, I'll show you a few things in JavaScript right now. So I'll go over to my JavaScript and I'll write something like alert hello, okay? And I'm gonna hit save. I'm gonna go back to my index.html file and I'll write my doc tab. It'll autocomplete a bunch of useful, common, normal stuff. And so I'll just keep that there. And for document, I will say, let's see, JavaScript on steroids. And when I come over here and I hit refresh, the tab, you'll see it says JavaScript on steroids. Now I need to link my JavaScript sheet to my HTML. Otherwise, it's not going to run the JavaScript code. Okay, it's kind of like the CSS and how that worked. Now on the left-hand side, you can see how they're related to each other. Okay, index is over here, and then you got to go in the static folder. Then you got to go in the JS folder, and then you got to click on, then you got to select script.js. So we're going to do just that, okay? So right before the body tag is about to end, I'm going to add a script tag, and I will say something along the lines of source, and I'll make the source static / JS / script.js, okay? I'll hit save. And I'll hit refresh, and you can see that the JavaScript code just ran, and now it says hello. Okay, this alert popped up. I can change this to hi, and I can come here, refresh, and now you can see the dialog box popped up, and it says hi. I can comment this out. I can say console.log hello, and hit save. I can hit right click inspect. I'll go into console. I'll refresh, and when I hit refresh, what you see here, let's make that bigger. What you see here, it says hello, okay? And this is the console. So anything I write and I say console.log, it'll just show up in the console right here. Console is very, very useful. And if you have Chrome, you can pop into this and check it out. Developer tools, and I'm sure Mozilla Firefox has those developer tools as well, okay? But I encourage you to use Chrome because that's what we're going to be using for this course. So now let's get started and see how can we add this challenge 1, your age and days, right? We're going to just add the HTML content. I'm just going to comment out some of the JavaScript, and we'll work on the JavaScript part together. I'm also going to hide the tab by doing Command B. Okay, I'm going to hide that little tab right there. And we're going to go in our body and we're going to get started. So first, I'm going to write an H2 tag because I think that's an H2. I'm going to right click, inspect, and yeah, that's H2. Okay, so I'm going to go back. And my H2 tag, I'm going to write this. So boom, refresh. Challenge 1, your age and days. So cool, we're done with that part of the code. Now, I want to add a few buttons and make them look kind of nice. How these look. So let's first just add a button, and then the button will say click me, and then we'll have another button, and that'll say reset. Okay, I'll come over here, refresh, and now we have 2 buttons. Okay, cool. So we got the buttons, but now what? Now we want to make it look a little bit nicer. So what I'm going to do is, instead of designing my own epic buttons, I'm just going to use Bootstrap, and Bootstrap makes it really easy to just style my stuff and make it look a lot nicer, okay, without me having to write a lot of code to style my button. I'm going to get Bootstrap and just do it. So here, Bootstrap CDN. And quick Bootstrap CDN stack path. I'll grab this complete CSS path, okay, CSS. I have copied it, and I'm going to go over here, and I will say link, and then paste that Bootstrap. Okay, now that that Bootstrap has been pasted, all this is, by the way, guys, is just a CSS file that's hosted online. Okay, so you could take the CSS file and you could actually paste it into your own CSS file like that, and notice it's like many lines of code. It just is all horizontal and on one line. But I wouldn't do that. I'll just use the one that's online. Okay, so I'm just gonna link to that path. That's kind of all we're doing here by linking to that path. Instead of linking to a local path, we're linking to an online path. And after linking to it, for these buttons, I'm just gonna add the class button primary for this one. And now what you're gonna notice, if I come here and hit refresh, this looks like a beautiful, juicy Bootstrap button. Okay, and then for this button, I'm gonna add class is equal to button danger, like that. Okay, hit refresh, and you can see now it looks like a nice, juicy Bootstrap danger button. Okay, so you have the blue button, we have the red button. Now, what else is going on this page, right? So on this page, we have all this content nice and centered, and whereas on ours, we actually don't have it nice and centered, right? If I look at ours, it's kind of like all the way to the top left. It's like squeezed up there. So we want to, if you notice, we kind of want to bring it in the middle and give it a little spacing from the top. So we're going to do that. So we're just going to play around with it and see how we can do it, okay? I'm going to put a container here in a second, because what I want to do, I want to show you guys something called Flexbox, okay? And Flexbox makes your life really easy. It's going to allow you to put things in a nice little grid and organize them, instead of how we had to do it before we had Flexboxes. You had to use like coordinates and percentages and do a lot of math to create things into their own grids and columns. Well, with Flexbox, it makes it really easy to put things either in a row or in a column, and it just calculates everything for you. It looks super nice and organized, okay? So that's what we're gonna do. First, I will create a container class, okay? I'm gonna call this container 1. Okay. I have this, move this over, and now I'm gonna create a Flexbox class. Okay, I'm gonna give this class Flexbox container 1, like that. And I'm gonna save this guy. I'll hit div, and I'll add in this button. Okay, and I'll just put each of these buttons in their own divs. Okay, so cool. So I have basically what I'm doing is I'm putting a Flexbox at the top, and inside of it I'm putting in 2 buttons, and each of those buttons is in its own div. Okay, so I'm gonna hit refresh here, and you just see that each button is in its own div. Now what I want to do is put them all kind of in one space. So before I go and do all of that, let's just do Flexbox container 1, and I'm gonna go in here and I'll just add a border. Okay, I'll add 1 pixel. Let's do solid and black. Come here, refresh. Flexbox container 1. Let's go back here. Why isn't it showing up? Oh, obviously because I didn't link to the sheet. So I'm just going to do link, and I'm going to do static slash CSS slash style.css. Refresh here, and now you can see that it's actually showing up somewhat. Okay, so we got those 2 divs there, and then what I actually want to do is I want to say display flex. Okay, so I'm doing display flex now, and I'm gonna do flex. Let's add a little bit of padding to this. Okay, adding a little bit of padding here. Oh, and this div here, let's move this down. So sorry, my container div wasn't closing all the way at the bottom. That's kind of where some of the stupid errors were coming from. I don't know what the heck I'm doing here. And this div is supposed to be closing all the way at the bottom here. Cool. So now what's happening is this div is being closed here, this is closed here, this is closed here, and this one's closed there. Cool. Now let's refresh. Okay, cool. So now we have the 2 buttons inside of one container. Okay, this is the container. This is what I added the border around. Okay, so if you notice here, right, I'm gonna hover over the elements here real quick. I'm gonna move this here, and I'm hovering over the container element, and you can see that this element that says Flexbox container 1, that's where actually that border is, and that's the one you actually see highlighted right now, right? Okay, now what I want to do is add some padding in between the buttons too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put each of the buttons in their own little box, because right now they're part of one flex box, so they're kind of like pushing together with each other. So what I want to actually do is give them a little breathing room. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say inside of the Flexbox container class, if there's any div, just give it a padding of 10 pixels. And so now you see because click me is a div and reset is a div, it's giving it its own space. I can also say, hey, border, add 1 pixel solid black here, and so now you can see that the reset and click me are actually their own little thing, and even though their own little thing, they have a little padding inside, right? So if I actually take away the padding, right, I click this, you can see what happens. Or if I go in here and take away the padding, so let's see on the right side if it lets me take that away. Right click right here, yep, right there. So if I take that padding away, you see how those buttons are squeezed together like that, but then when I add padding, they get a little bit of breathing room. So now what this is doing is that inside of this class, every single div, it's selecting that, and I'm just styling each of those divs that's only within this particular container class. Okay, hopefully you're following me so far. Okay, so right now we're just kind of doing the styling part. We're gonna add the JavaScript part in just a little bit. So now what do we want to do? Okay, we have all of this together. One thing we want to do is that we want to justify our content. Okay, we want to justify our content, and we want to justify it as space around. And when we refresh, it's adding space around it. So Flexbox has like smart things. Okay, there are some other options too. For example, see if VS Codes will make those suggestions for you. So to justify content, And then see, it does right, flex start, flex end. So I could do flex start, for example, okay? Hit this, refresh, and now it's at flex start. I could also do flex end, and now they're all the way to the right of the flex box, right, where the flex box is ending. So have you ever seen those testimonials on a page where at the bottom, like some of them are starting from the left to right, and then right below it, it starts from right to left, and then right below it starts from left to right? Well, using Flexbox, you can actually make it really easy for you to do, and it's kind of cool. And we'll do flex here as well. So there we go. Justify content, we'll add a flex wrap. Flex wrap will come in handy later on when we have things that need to wrap around or start going to new lines. So it won't really take too much effect right now, but I'll show you what it does afterward. And instead of flex end, we're gonna again do space around. You can also do space between, space evenly. Cool. So our div 1 is looking somewhat decent. We're gonna do align items center. Okay. Now what we want to do is make sure that the entire challenge is inside of a container. So what I'm going to do is I already have it inside of a container. What I want to do is just make it visual so you can actually see it. Okay. So I'm just going to do dot container 1, and then I'll just do border 1 pixel solid black. Okay. And there we go. So now you can see that the entire thing is actually inside of one container. And this one over here is a flex box inside. That flex box has 2 flex items, and one is click me and one is reset. Okay. I can do, different kinds of things with this. Like I can choose my flex direction. So I can do row, which is usually by default, and I can also do column. And now notice that each of those are in its own column, which again is pretty cool how it makes it so easy for you by just doing column. I can also do column reverse if I wanted to switch their orders, right? And I can also do row reverse. So here, now reset and click me gets switched up. So pretty nice, but right now we're just gonna keep it at row. Now what we wanna do is when somebody clicks click me, it should essentially add how many days old you are, okay, and then let you reset it. So we're gonna now work on that, okay. So what we're gonna do for this is we're gonna go inside of our index.html. We're gonna go right below our div flexbox container 1. We're gonna create another div here. We're gonna give it the same class of flexbox container 1 because we want to inherit its styling. And then inside of here, I'm gonna create a div, and I'll give it an idea of flexbox result. Okay, just like that. So now this is gonna be empty. This is gonna be empty. There's nothing in there yet. What we're gonna do is we're gonna create a h2 element and we're gonna add it in there. So that's kind of where that is gonna take place, but you're not gonna see that right away. So let's go ahead and do that. Now we're gonna go to our script. I will remove all of this, and this is gonna be our challenge 1, your age in days. Now this is the fun JavaScript part, okay? Okay, how do we do age in days? Well, think about it. First, what we need is, here's what we need to get, okay? We need to see what year somebody was born in, okay? So let's say that you were born in 1994. Well, how would I figure out how many days old you are? In a simple way, okay? I will take your age and just multiply it by 365 because there are 365 days in a year, and that will give me your age in days. So if you're 10 years old, I'll do 10 multiplied by 365. That number, 3,650, those will be the number of days, and that's how old you are. And that's essentially what we're going to be doing here, okay? We're going to take the age and then just subtract. So, for example, I can do something like variable birth year is equal to 1994. Whoops, let's do this. Let's do birth year. It's 1994. Now I'm going to do 2018 minus birth, or sorry, I can do this. Age in days, right? What's the formula for age in days? Well, that's just 2018, the current year, minus your birth year. Okay. And now if I print out age in days, it says 20, or sorry, I got to do this multiplied. Let's put a parentheses around this, multiplied by 365. Okay. Now if I do age in days, it gives me 8,760, and that's how many days old I am. So that's essentially it. It's not too complicated. It's a pretty straight up thing. So we're going to do birth year is equal to, but how we're going to now take this input is by using something called prompt, okay? So for example, I can say variable, let's see, apple, okay? I will say equals prompt, how many apples do you eat every day? Question mark. And now notice it just pulled up a prompt, okay? It says how many apples do you eat every day? I will say 6 and hit enter. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go in the console and hit apple, and look, it says 6. It gives me a 6 as a string. Very cool, okay? So that's the information that you're actually going to be, that's how you're going to be taking in information from the user. That's how you're going to be using the prompt. So I'm going to go here and I'll say prompt, what year were you born, good friend? Okay. So let's save it. Let's come here. Let's refresh, and boom, there it is. I was born in 1994. Awesome. Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect that button to triggering this. Okay. So every time we click, instead of just me refreshing the page and it popping up this prompt, what I want to do is that it should pop up once I click the click me button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this inside of a function. I'll call this function age in days. All right. And I'll go in my index.html, and what I'll say is that in this button, I'm going to give it another attribute, and I'll say on click, run that function age in days. Okay, let's say run that function. So I'll hit refresh, and now look, the prompt didn't pop up, but when I click me, the prompt pops up. Cool. So that's pretty exciting so far. Let's keep going. We got our birth here. What can we do now? Well, let's just pop up. Hopefully it's Postmates and we got some delicious food. We'll see how it is. It's probably really good. And let's just keep rolling with it, okay? So I'm going to do var. All right, so age in days. Okay, we just did birth year, and now we're going to take your age in days. Okay, how are we going to do that? I'm going to call this age in days a bad variable name because the function is called this. So I will just do age in days. Okay, terrible. Normally shouldn't do that, but I just will. Okay, and I'm going to move on with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 2018 minus birth year. That's kind of what we did earlier. Multiplied by 365. That's going to give me the age in days, okay, of this person. And let's actually just print it out to the console. So I'm going to do console.log age in days, which is a variable here. I'll go here. I'll hit refresh. Now I'll click me, and I'll do 1994. And in the console, is giving me the right result. Okay, 8,760. The only problem is that it's giving me in the console, but it needs to give it to me actually in our file, right? Or in our index.html. So what we need to do is add it to that. Okay, this is something called DOM, D-O-M, document object model. And we just need to create a new H2 element and just put it in our DOM. Okay, so I'll show you exactly how we're gonna do that. You see this little empty box here? We're gonna just attach it kind of to that. So let's get started with that. I'm gonna say create an H1 variable. I'm gonna say document.create element, and I'll create a H1 element. Okay, now once I create that H1 element, I'm gonna say text answer document.create text node. Okay, so I'm now creating text, and I'm gonna add that ultimately to the H1 content. Okay, so I'm gonna say you are here plus age in days. So this is what we're doing right now, is string concatenation. So we're taking a string and then we're adding a variable to it. Okay, it's just a fancy way of saying like we're attaching two strings together. Got it? Okay, good. All right, let's keep going. So I'm gonna take this, I will add days old to that. Okay, so this is gonna create that text node. This I'm grabbing this age and days over here, and that's gonna be my text answer. Once I create this text answer, I want to add it to my H1. Okay, so how do I do that? I'm gonna say set h1.set attribute, and I'm gonna say set its ID to age in days, and then I want to do h1.append child text answer, and then lastly what I want to do is document.get element by ID Flexbox result. Okay, and append child h1. A lot going on here, and I'm gonna explain it in just a second. So I'm gonna delete all of this, or that one line. I'm gonna hit refresh. I'll hit click me. I'll hit 1994, and boom, you can see that it says you are 8,760 days old in my code. Okay, doesn't say it anywhere else, and not in the console, not in an alert. It actually says it right in my page. So how is this working? Okay, I can always right click and hit inspect. Whenever you're in doubt, just inspect. Okay, think of it like you're a detective and you're trying to figure out like what's actually taking place. So while I'm looking at this, if I hover over, I can see my age and days. And another thing I want you to notice is, you see here on line 8 where we're setting this attribute and we're saying set this h1 tag's ID to age in days. Well, check it out. This h1 now has an ID which is age in days, and then what I'm doing is I'm adding that little h1 that I created, right? To that I'm appending the text answer I created earlier. So it's adding this guy right here to the h1. And then once it does that, I go grab the Flexbox result, okay, which is right over here, Flexbox result. And to that, I append a child, which is the h1 tag I ended up creating. Okay, so if I hit refresh, it goes away. When I hit click me, 1994, it calculates it for me and gives me how old I am. Now we just need to do two things. One, it's to make sure that when we hit reset, this actually goes away. Okay, and that one is not as hard. So I'm gonna do function reset, and I'll say take that document, get that particular element by its ID. Okay, and the ID we gave it, Flexbox result, that's the ID of it, right? So I'm gonna do Flexbox result, or actually I'm gonna do age in days, because that's the ID that this guy has. So we want to grab that guy and remove him. Okay, so I'm going to do get element age and days, and I'm just going to call remove on it. And now I just want to make sure that this function reset runs when I click the reset button. see if you can figure this part out. Because we did the click me together, where I gave click me the ability to run this function age in days. See if you can get the reset one to figure it out. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do it. So if you didn't get it, don't worry. Beat yourself up just a little bit because you should have gotten it. But if not, you know what? It's okay. This happens, and we're here to learn, and we'll just figure it out together, okay? You and me, okay? We're in this battle together, so let's figure it out. I'm going to go to my button, okay, reset, and I'm just going to go here, and I'll say on click, and I will say run the function reset. That's it. So now I'll refresh. I'll hit click me 1994. You are 8,760 days old. I'll hit reset, and boom, it just grabs that div and just deletes it. So now it's gone. Okay. If I actually removed all the borders, you wouldn't even see anything here. It just look empty to you. And the last thing we want to do in this challenge is just make sure everything is kind of like centralized. So what I want to do is I will go to my style.css. I'll go to my container, and I'm going to do margin 0 auto, and I'll hit refresh here. And I'm going to go to my width, and I'll make my width like about 75%, and I'll hit refresh. And now you can see that it's a little bit more centralized, right? But the text is still not centralized. So last thing I want to do is align text, or I think it's text align, and center. I'm not a front end expert, guys. I barely spend any time on front end. So take this with a grain of salt. But this is good. I'm going to save it. I'm going to come here, refresh. Look at that. Nice and centralized, looking sexy. We're ready to get into our challenge 2. I hope that you got it so far. You understand it. Whether you understand it or you don't, what I want you to do is try to do this all from scratch. Okay? Don't get discouraged because you're gonna fail this the first few times. It's gonna feel a little bit like it's gonna hurt your brain, but it's gonna start to make sense. So do this for your first few times. Get the hang of how the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript all connect and speak together with each other. One thing is styling it, one thing is creating it, and the other thing, JavaScript, is helping speak to your code, your buttons, and make everything essentially work. Okay, so that's it. I hope you're excited for the second challenge. I know I am. And as always, that's it for this video. And I'll see you in the next video. What's up, you? How is it going? I hope you are excited, and I know I am, and we're gonna work on the second challenge in this video. Okay, this is the cat generator challenge, and this is gonna be super exciting, a lot of fun to work on. And this is where you hit that green button and it generates cats for you. Okay, kind of like that. And we're gonna work on this together. We're gonna build it up. Now, the things that are gonna be like the most complex in this project, right, is not really the JavaScript portion. It's going to be the HTML and CSS portion. So we're going to focus more on the HTML and CSS part for this project. And then the JavaScript part is going to be a little bit easier, and we're going to do that at the end. In the start, we're going to do HTML, CSS. And now you might be wondering, hey, Kazi, this is the JavaScript module, so why are we focusing more on the HTML and CSS? The reason is because I want you to learn in a project-based way. Now, I can just teach you the JavaScript part, and we can just do console.log all day and not actually build any cool projects, but that would be boring. You're going to want to shoot yourself, and you're not going to actually make any forward progress, so I want to avoid that. You might actually make progress, but it won't be as enjoyable, and you won't feel that deep sense of achievement, okay? But I promise you will learn JavaScript in a more deeper way because you get to learn how it connects to these projects, okay? So it'll be a lot of fun. Hang in there with me, and let's get started. So for this, let's talk about the HTML and CSS part, okay? So you saw me just generate 5 cats right now, okay? And notice what happened. Like, the cats didn't run across this border, right? They didn't run across to the right or to the left. They nicely move on to a new line in this case, okay? So how are these images intelligent like that? How does that happen? How does it know to automatically go to a new line when it can't fit on the top one anymore? And I'm going to show you some really cool ways to be able to make something in a really super simple way, the simplest way, okay, to do that, okay? Normally it used to require math and for you to know percentages. There's something so much easier. So it's a little bit of how we did the last one, the age and days, except I'm going to break this one down a little bit more, okay? So first, I'm just going to take a picture of this challenge right here. Let's just talk about this particular challenge and nothing else, okay? So let's go like this and talk about this challenge. Now, everything that's in the gray area in this picture, I want you to think of that as the body, okay? That's the body of the entire HTML document. So for example, here, this white area, right? That's the body. The thing in the borders, like these over here, those are the containers, right? So we made the containers and then we shrunk them, right? And we made it like so it's more centered. All the content is centered on the page. But the outside of it and like the whole document is actually like the body, okay? So I just want you to be aware of that distinction. Now, first, I want to talk about this, okay? So this is a container that contains everything about our challenge, okay? So it's literally just a div, okay? And that div has a class of container. That's all this is. So this red thing, I'm just going to call this a container. All right, now what's going on with the rest of the stuff, right? This challenge thing is just in the container, and the button we can just say that it's in a container. Right now I have it in its own div, which is like a Flexbox div, but that's really not necessary. And in this challenge, we're not going to even do that. But you can if you want to. So we're going to ignore the button, but the button is essentially, just think of it like it's in the same place as where the challenge is, okay? It's just in the container, that's it. And now, where are these cats, right? These cats are actually inside of something we call in CSS a flexbox. So they're actually inside of another div, okay? So I'm going to highlight this blue, and I'm going to make a little bit tricky, but I'm going to do this like this. And then I'm going to move this, I'm going to move this blue bar right on top of this. Okay, that should be good enough. Okay, so that blue box is another div inside of the container div. Okay, so the container is the parent, and this blue one is not the parent. Okay, it's the child, and this is the Flexbox div. Okay, within this Flexbox div, we have a few items. Now, Flexbox is something that's pretty intelligent, and it has pretty smart built-in ways of telling it to, hey, space things evenly, or when something runs across, make sure it doesn't run across. Instead, it actually runs down below and starts a new line. Okay, so we're gonna talk about that too. And all these the images, they're just image elements. Okay, so if I have to highlight them, I'll highlight them for you as well. So each of these are just image elements. That's it, okay? So if I had to write that down, I would just write img here, and that's it. It's just the image class or the image element. That's all those are. Now, where this padding thing is coming from, right? Like, how is there this spacing that takes place in between? So if I have to draw this out, how is this happening? So let me go here. I'm going to type this out because my handwriting is not the best. Okay. This 10 pixel margin, where is that taking place? That's actually taking place in the Flexbox. So in the Flexbox styling, we can actually define it to just space all of that div's items by 10 pixels. So that's essentially what's causing that spacing. Okay. Now, what is causing it to wrap? Instead of going across the body and running into the body, right? And getting outside of the Flexbox div or the original container, the reason why when you pop open a new image, it goes down below is because of something called wrapping in Flexbox. And there's an intelligent way how wrapping works. So here, I'm going to just highlight it. And essentially the code we have for that is flex wrap. Okay. So that's the specific code that's actually making the wrapping work. And another thing I want you to be aware of is how there is how everything is spaced kind of evenly, and then there's space around it. Okay, so notice here, right? This is not just that 10 padding, this is something else. Okay, and then notice this here and notice this here, right? How is that? So this is actually something we call space around. Okay, and space around is what's causing this to happen. And more specifically, the line of code would be this. So let me delete this and then right in here, if it would let me, justify content space around. Okay, like that. So that's actually what's allowing me to have that equal spacing take place. Okay, so at the end of the day, we have two divs. One is the container div, and then the one is the Flexbox div. Flexbox div, it's intelligent. We just tell it, hey, make all the items of that div flex. So all the link that basically somebody put together this website where it's called like catapi.com, and every time you run their URL, it gets you a new image every single time, some random new image. So I thought that'd be cool, and it makes our life a lot easier. Okay, so if I paste that every time and run it, you can see I keep getting a newer and newer image. And also because I want a small image, in the arguments of the URL parameter, I say size is equal to small, okay, and type is GIF. Now you could probably change the type, you could probably change the source, and you could probably change the size, but I like small and I like GIF because GIFs are awesome. So let's go back to our JavaScript steroids thing, and I'm just gonna paste that. I'm just gonna paste it. That's it. Okay, I'm just gonna paste it as a source, and we're gonna hit refresh, and you can see one of the images popping up in the Flexbox, right? It's popping up in the Flexbox. Let's try putting another image and another image, and then refreshing and seeing what happens. So now what I want you to notice is that these images are really close to each other, and there's no padding, right? So if I put this to the left-hand side, if I put this to the left-hand side, you see that this has padding, except our images on the right have absolutely no padding. And then another thing I want you to see is that it actually runs across instead of running on a new line, right? So if I added another image here, it'll kind of look really ugly. And I press refresh. Like, notice that the images are now just literally running across, right? Running across the page. If I refresh again, same thing. These are running across. So now, what should I do? Well, first, let's just highlight each image green so you can actually see each of the elements inside of that Flexbox, okay, or inside of that container. So I'm going to say Flexbox container 2, and I'll go here and I'll say select the image. Okay, so I can go one level down that container and just select the image, and I'm gonna give border, and I'll say 1 pixel solid, and I'll say green. Okay, and we'll refresh, and now you can see that each image has a green border around it, so you can kind of see what that like which part of that is the image. Okay, so yeah, it's a little confusing because there's an overlap between the flexbox and the image, but I think you get the idea, right? Okay, so now how can we make it so the images actually run across, run down? Okay, so first let's do that. So make sure that the image is actually running down. So my container, the type is flex, and then what I want to do is I want to say flex wrap and enable the wrap. And when I hit refresh, you'll notice that now when it's about to run across the div or the flex box, it'll automatically go to the new line. So now that's a pretty good sign. That's a pretty good thing that we have done. But if we look at the padding is still kind of annoying. And also it spaces it kind of weirdly, right? It's all left justified and it's not centralized and it doesn't feel like equal amount of spacing, and it kind of feels a little messy, right? So if I full screen the page, it looks like this. And maybe if I put a few more cats here, and now if I full screen the page, yeah, I'm not a really big fan of it. So one thing we want to do definitely is add some padding. Let's try adding some padding here. Okay, so now this is a little bit better. That's maybe what we want most of, because we definitely want some padding to be taking place, right? And what we're essentially doing is between each image, we're adding some padding. So that's what we're doing. Before we had the padding in the div, but what we actually want the padding in is between each image element. So now between each image element, it has a padding of 10. So this has a padding of 10 and this has a padding of 10. That's why they're kind of equally they're spaced out from one another. Now notice how these images, like the images below, are lining up to the images at the top, but notice how what we had on this page, these images at the bottom are not actually lining up to the images at the top, right? They're not left justified. They're more like centralized in a really intelligent way. So to do that, what we essentially need to do is say justify content, and we want to say space around. Okay, and once I hit refresh, you can see that because of space around, the images at the bottom don't actually run all the way to the left. They're more centralized. Okay, cool. So flex boxes are pretty awesome, and they make our life a lot easier. So we've added the padding, we have the images, we pretty much have everything we need at this point, right? The challenge is essentially complete at this point. The only thing that we need to do is make it so that when we hit the generate cat button, it automatically creates the image element, right? Instead of us having, right now we're manually writing it. So what we want to do is we hit the generate cat button, it automatically adds those cats. So I want to do generate cat, add the cats for me. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to delete all the cats for now. Okay. Once I delete all the cats, you can see that the cats are gone. If I make the page full and I hit generate cat, because I don't have any JavaScript attached yet to my page, well, nothing is going to actually take place, right? Nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to get added. So now we need to do a little bit of JavaScript magic, okay? But that part is actually very, very, very simple. So what we want to do is I'm going to go here and I'll give this an ID. Okay, so I'll call it cat gen button. Okay, you can really call it whatever you want. Again, let me just see what I have here. So the naming convention is the same. We'll actually call this cat generator right here. Okay, we'll call it cat generator. So that's the ID of this green button here. And then I'm gonna go over here and I'll add something called on click. And I'll say on click, run a function called generate cat. Now I'm gonna go over to my JavaScript, and in my JavaScript, I'm gonna create a function called generate cat. And what this is essentially gonna do is it's gonna first get that, it's gonna create an image element. Then I want to create a div element. So I'm going to say, or actually, we don't need to create a div element, but what I do need to do is get access to the Flexbox div. Okay, so I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say get element by ID. So what I need access to is actually this guy right over here. And the idea is that once I can get access to this container, I want to just keep appending image elements to this every time somebody clicks a button. So to get access to this, let's just give it an ID. So that way it'll make getting access to this a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm gonna say ID is equal to Flexbox or FlexCatGen. That's the ID I'm gonna give it. Let's go over to our JavaScript. I will say Flexbox or FlexCatGen. And that should get us that div. And now what I want to do is set the image's source. Okay, so the image element that I created earlier, I want to set its source to a link. And that link in this case will be the cat whatever link. And then what I want to do at the end is to that div append a child, and that child is going to be the image. And save. I'll hit refresh, and I'll hit generate cat, and boom, it works. And generate cat, and it works. And generate cat, and generate cat. And if I refresh, you can see how it's working. Cool. There's only one thing that we actually need to add, and we're gonna do that in just a second. Okay, so the box shadows are not there. Notice with my cat, it looks pretty clean, right? You see how the image looks like it's like popping out a little bit. That's what I want to give you, because otherwise you're going to have an image that looks really flat and your website looks pretty stupid and amateurish, right? You want to give it a little pizzazz to it. So I'm going to just pretty much have you copy my code here for that. And what we're going to do is I'm going to copy my box shadow code, and you can play around with it so you can really see how it works. But there are websites like CSS Matic or something, I think, and you can go to them and actually create boxes and shadows and things like that, like visually, and it gives you the CSS code for it. All right, so I'm gonna go in image here. I'll paste it here, and we'll refresh and generate cat, and generate cat, and generate cat, and you know, it looks like the box shadow is popping up over here, and it looks like that part of it is looking pretty good. Now another thing I want to do, I'm going to hit refresh, take that away. Okay, so I don't actually even need padding, because that padding was adding the white border around and actually didn't make it look that good. But with the space even, or the space around that we did with the Flexbox, it automatically gives it inherent padding, and that kind of looks really nice, right? And that's essentially what we want. So it's looking pretty good, honestly, at this point. A few things we can actually improve here is, first of all, we can take away the borders because they look a little ugly. The only reason I had them is so you can kind of compare them with the little picture that I made, but I would pretty much take away, like, let's say at least that border, and then the red borders I have, right? Maybe just make them black for now. Ultimately, you don't want to have any borders. The reason why I have the borders there right now is so you can see very easily like what is what. Okay, so I'll refresh, and I just made the borders black, so this way it just looks a little bit cleaner. Now, you might notice that there's a lot of like repetition of code. Okay, so what do I mean by that? We have display flex, and for Flexbox container 1, I have display flex. I have flex wrap. I have for Flexbox container 1, flex wrap. Flex direction row, by default flex direction is row. I only just chose to write it here so you can see, you know, what it actually is. And then we also have justify content space around. And then I have border 1 pixel black, and I have border 1 pixel black. So since there's so much overlap of the code, there's really no reason to write its own, like write these lines again. What I can actually just do is say Flexbox container 2, okay, like that, and just hit save and delete this. And when I come over here, refresh and hit generate cat, you see it generates my cats, and my cats look pretty good. Okay, so that's the situation with that guy. Container 2, border 1 pixel solid, width 75%. And you can see like the code is the exact same as container 1. So what can you do? Right, you just the same thing. We'll do container dot container 2. Okay, so essentially the same code is there. Okay, and you can see that that's also working just fine. All right, so now when I do generate cat, right, it's still good, but here's the thing. One thing that makes it look a little ugly is like, look, there's no padding or margin between those images. There's no breathing room for the images. Whereas if you look at my final version, right, look at the images and look how there's this nice little margin between the images. So we're gonna basically add that. And here, you're also going to get to play around with the difference of padding and margin, okay? A lot of the times, you want to just be using margin, but sometimes you should use padding. Generally, I like to actually use margin. So here, like you'll notice what happens. I'll do 10 pixels here, right? To that image, I'm going to add a padding here, and I'll refresh. And you'll notice how it's adding that little white thing, because essentially what it's doing is extending it out. But what we want to do is we want to give a gap between each image element. So now instead of adding padding, I'll say margin, and I'll go refresh, and I'll do generate cat a few times, and boom, look at that. Instead of like extending each image box, what it did is it just added spacing between each image box. Okay, so now this looks super clean. I love it. I hope you love it. And you can see the power of Flexboxes, right? The more I hit generate cats, the container grows to fit it. The Flexbox grows to fit it. And then the Flexbox is also very intelligent in terms of how it wraps, how it spaces around evenly, how it centralizes it. So I am a big fan. I love it. And there you have it. This is what your CSS actually should look like, okay? These were the new things that we added, literally like this, and I believe this line here, okay? That was all that was added in the CSS for this one, or actually in container 2. This is all we added in the JavaScript part for this video, and this is the only part that we added for the HTML part in this video, okay? That's it. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you loved it. This was a super exciting part. I had a lot of fun creating this with you, and I hope that you did too, and that you just learned a lot. Okay, so that's it for this video. As always, I love you and your face, and I'll see you in the next video. There it is, guys. We really hope that you enjoyed this crash course that we put together for you. We really hope that you got a lot of value out of it. Remember, the source code is in the description below, and one important thing that we want to share with you and leave with is that I have put together an incredible, mind-blowing 3-part masterclass that will show you step by step exactly what you need to do, what the opportunity in your life as a Python developer can look like, what your earning potential can look like, and what are the exact steps you need to take to make this happen in your life. Please keep in mind, this training I've put together for you is absolutely free of charge, completely free. All I'm gonna need from you is your name and your email address. And once you pop that in, I'm gonna send this training over to you right away. With that said, the link is gonna be in the video below in the description, so go ahead and click that link. I'll also try to put it here on the screen in the video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I love your face, and I'll see you in the next video.